Do you long to undertake the greatest adventure of all, among the invisible forces, to learn the ancient secrets of the old religion? Perhaps even to cast a few simple spells yourself? To invoke a spirit or two? Do you have the heart for it? Well, that's good. I'm glad. I thought you would. So now let's get down to Hauntcast.
Radio for haunters and Halloween fanatics.
Clench your jewels and hang on for your life.
Welcome back to the dungeon, me minions. Hauntcast is a radio for haunters and Halloween fanatics, oozing with haunt tips, tricks, tactics, news reviews, how-tos, interviews, and lots of booze. Now let's welcome in the king of cringe, our G-host, Baker.
All right, minions, it's time to slip on your shoes and grab your balls, as we are going bowling. Most normal people use Brunswick balls. Me, I prefer to use my own secret weapon. Scully's head. Hey, Scully, come here for a minute.
What do you want, Baker?
Hold on, let me just grab your skull.
What are you doing?
Hold still. Don't fight it.
Come on, Baker.
There we go. All right, now let's see if we can pick up that 7-10 split.
Come on, Baker, this is really degrading.
Be quiet, you baby. Nice. Hey, put down that soy and grab yourself a Frosty Stein and fill it to the rim, as here comes the Team O Scream. You've probably heard of a GoFundMe campaign. Well, he riffed off the idea and started his own Go F*** Yourself campaign. Our master of ceremonies, Johnny Thunder, and I will review Sliders of Ghost Town, Bird Box, Escape Room, Terror Tales, Clove Hitch Killer, Rust Creek, and Revenge. Our haunt analyst.
I think you mean analyst.
No, I know what I mean. Our haunt analyst, Revenant, will probe the deepest, darkest depths of your haunt's colon during Theater of the Mind. When he gets drunk, he yelps himself with a 1-star review. Blowing into town, it's Wick Ed Gannon with Something Wicked. Hey fellas, go ahead and swipe left, as you ain't copping a feel of her bodacious bustier. Morbid Mariah will shimmy and shake her way through the darkest web. And I'll be playing operator and taking incoming calls from author of Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida, Mark Muncy, haunter Greg Wallace of Wallace Manor, and my haunting guru guest will be Greg Packard of Restless Manor. Now, I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. What the hell, Scully? I thought it was dead.
Ask and you shall receive.
Come on, dude. I don't want to have PETA coming down on us as well. Anyway, we need your support if you want to keep the show at least on a bi-monthly basis. We were shooting to bring it back on a monthly basis, but doesn't look like we're going to reach that goal anytime in the near future. Anyway, I started a Subscribestar account, which is similar to Patreon, but without the bias censorship and the rumblings that they're going to be going under at some point. Yeah, no, they sound like they're in financial trouble or something. Plus, I'm just haven't been happy with the platform. Anyway, I'm not deleting Patreon, but I do encourage you to support us on Subscribestar. So after you create an account and subscribe on Subscribestar, you can then go back and cancel your Patreon support. But please, we need to keep the support where it is at least, so we don't have to start shaving back and cutting out the bi-monthly shows. We'd really like to at least keep them going out every other month. So we can't afford to lose you. Please don't cancel or downgrade. If you don't want to be bothered, then just stay on Patreon, but we'd prefer if you go to Subscribestar. The links are available on hauntcast.net or go to subscribestar.com/hauntcast.
Please subscribe. I don't want Baker pimping me out to the necrophiliacs. Again.
Now, I know it's nearly impossible to suffer all the way till the end of the show, but I am hooking up some fortunate supporters with some haunted attraction design and how-to DVDs. Find out if you're the winner at the end of the show. Now let's set the scene and add some atmosphere by popping in a mini disc of Murderock's latest album, Demonia, and my interview with Greg Packard of Restless Souls Manor is dead ahead.
Blood and lace.
Every year, tens of millions of people flock to Florida for its sunny beaches and world-famous tourist attractions. Most never learn about the strange and unusual locations just off the beaten path. From the UFOs of Gulf Breeze to Robert the Haunted Doll in Key West, learn about the myths, monsters, and legends from the dark side of the Sunshine State with author Mark Muncy and illustrator Carrie Schultz in their books Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida from the History Press. Find them at eerieflorida.com or wherever books are sold.
Theater of the Mind. A few weeks ago, the St. Louis area was hit by the biggest snowstorm we'd seen in several years. It started early Friday afternoon, and like an idiot, I didn't bail out of work early because I really wanted to make my attendance bonus for January. The interstate was completely choked with non-moving traffic, and I decided to just get something to eat. Fortunately, I was currently stranded in the parking lot of a massive shopping complex, so there were plenty of choices, and waited out, and hopefully the traffic would die down and the roads would get cleared. As the evening wore on and the situation only worsened, I knew I was going to have to find a way to keep myself amused and out of the cold. As luck would have it, there was a movie theater in the complex, and so I figured I would catch a flick. The only film playing that looked like it might not totally suck was Escape Room, which I had not planned on catching theatrically, but to my surprise turned out to be a really well-made, exciting thriller. If you haven't seen it, the plot is simple. 6 strangers have each received invitations to an escape room game that ends up being full of death traps, and the real challenge is simply staying alive. One of my favorite sequences was the 8-ball room, a large rec room with a pool table and jukebox that's built completely upside down. As if that wasn't disorienting enough, the jukebox fires up and Petula Clark's 1964 hit Downtown starts blasting, making it difficult for the players to concentrate. If they'd only known that several clues were actually in the lyrics of the song, they probably wouldn't have been so fired up about finding the source of the music and shutting it off. This was just one example of the sadism of the mysterious creators of the game. Every room did indeed have a solution, but the players were constantly bombarded with dirty tricks and distractions to thwart their attempts to find it, and their confusion would only add to the rising panic that would make it even more difficult to process the clues and puzzles. And you gotta admit, finding your way out of an upside-down rec room with a schmaltzy pop song blasting in your ears while the floor/ceiling is falling away piece by piece into the abyss could be pretty damn confusing. While escape rooms and haunted attractions are actually much better when they don't systematically kill off their guests, the use of distortion, confusion, and disorientation can really add to the experience. Making things coherent, logical, and real feeling are all good things to work for in a haunt, but other times it's good to make things a little crazy and bewildering to throw the audience off balance and keep them guessing. In American cinema and TV, we've developed a tendency to over-explain everything and tie up all the loose ends, putting the audience in the position of omniscience. In other parts of the world, they're a little more loose with that. That's why I've always liked Australian horror films. Their attitude is, the people directly involved in the story don't know what the hell is going on, so why should you? The same thing works in a haunt. Mess with their heads a little and they'll be less able to predict what's coming up. Early in Season 1, I did a segment on trying to create the sense of the uncanny, that creepy, queasy feeling you get when things are just a little off and unnatural. It's great when you can achieve it, but it's a lot easier to do in literature or movies when you have more control over what the audience can see and perceive. It's a lot tougher to get in a haunt because subtlety often just doesn't work. There's not enough time for people to process fine details. A single detail that you want people to catch will generally have to be pretty bold. The smaller details would have to be repeated throughout to make an impression. For example, angles. Throwing off angles can have a disorienting effect on people, but simply skewing a single picture or setting a table off level would go unnoticed. Now, throw the angle off of everything in the room, the pictures, the window and door frames, the furniture, all in the same direction and by the same degree, and the effect can be dramatic to the point where it affects the guest's equilibrium. Just think about how people react when they first walk into a vortex tunnel. They can barely stay on their feet. Many can't move forward without shutting their eyes. When perception of the total surroundings is distorted, it can really mess with a person's sense of place and balance. More boldly distorted visuals can be used sparingly but to great effect. Picture a Victorian sitting room with portraits on the walls and various busts and statuary, and the busts and the people in the paintings are turned around, facing away from the viewer. Or they don't have any faces. It's not scary per se, but it's wrong and freaky. Then follow that up with a high-tech video portrait with a shock scare and watch the fun. Use of misdirection and distraction can also be used to pull people's attention away from an area where a major prop or set piece can be swapped out for something different, so that when they turn back around, the scene has changed. They might not even know what it is that has changed, but many will get the sense that something did, and it can help increase the feelings of uncertainty and paranoia. Levitation can be a pretty creepy effect if you can do it. An object just hanging out unsupported in space really has an unsettling effect on people. Sometimes it can be hard to conceal wires and strings because that's the first thing that people look for when they see something apparently floating in the air. But if it's a large enough object and you can restrict the audience's viewing angle, you can use an armature extending to the wall behind it to support it. And if you're really ambitious and have the space to do it, there's always that upside-down room. It's probably out of the range of the average home haunter, but if you can pull it off, it really makes an impression. Manipulation of the visual elements in a scene don't have to stop with distortions of normal details. You can go all the way into the abstract. Passage through scenes like dot rooms and vortex tunnels can act like logical palate cleansers, knocking people out of the mood and atmosphere of the previous scenes before they move on to the next scene setup. Movement of actors can also be made unnatural and freaky. Think of the nightmarish twitching torsos in Jacob's Ladder or the spastic, jerky body movements of the nurses in Silent Hill. Slowing down and speeding up movements abruptly can get people's attention and act as an effective momentary distraction for another actor to approach or for a prop change to be made. I saw footage once, I don't remember where it was from, but there were some scenes where actors would pass through where they were actually standing on conveyor belts so they looked like they were floating along without moving their legs. A very creepy effect. Probably not doable for the home haunter, but maybe something could be rigged with roller skates or Healy wheel shoes. You'd probably want to do this in an area where the guests can't see the actor's actual feet, but the concept merits consideration. Lighting and shadows can be played with to provide a disorienting environment, but should be exercised with caution. Areas of total darkness should be avoided anywhere there are obstacles present for obvious safety reasons. And in areas free of obstruction, darkness is probably better used where some kind of night vision can be used by haunt personnel just to keep an eye on the guests and make sure everybody's okay. Strobe lights are popular, but there should always be warnings posted for the benefit of people with seizure disorders like epilepsy. If someone in line states that they have such an issue, hopefully the haunt staff have a way of turning the strobes off when those people get to that area. One of the most creative areas of opportunity for distortion, distraction, and disorientation is sound design. Not only are there myriad great sources of music and sound effects available online, simple free audio softwares like Audacity and GarageBand allow for infinite sampling, mixing, looping, and manipulation. Music can be sped up, slowed down, flattened, or brightened. Pops and scratches can be added for that old-timey gramophone effect. The sky's the limit. For years at the Blackford Home Haunt where I play, that was my specialty. They generally supplied the cue line music, but I provided the sound effects and atmosphere music tracks for inside the haunt. Of course, there are tons of choices of ready-made music tailor-made for the haunt, but I've found one of the most disturbing things to do is simply making a shockingly wrong music choice that simply doesn't fit the environment. Case in point, the aforementioned 8-ball room and escape room. The players are racing against the clock, trying to not be killed. They've already lost one person in the group. They're in this insane upside-down world, and what song comes on but this ridiculously upbeat 60s pop song? Picture a grisly murder scene with blood and guts everywhere. One would expect some dramatic and intense theatrical background music, but imagine if a tinny radio was playing something like The Wonderful Thing About Tiggers or Rafi's Banana Phone. The mental disconnect would be jarring and deliciously creepy. Extra tracks can of course be added. A well-known song could be overlaid with sinister sound effects or additional voices in a way that can be heard but not well understood. Look up number stations on YouTube for some good samples to mix in with the music. This was used to good effect in the video game Half-Life 2, where there was a creepy radio with some weird music and a number station transmission playing. Running a voice track backwards can also be pretty weird and sinister, especially when mixed in with something normal sounding. Non-musical ambient soundtracks usually consist of sound effects that make sense. Dripping water, crickets, rats, industrial machinery, creaking ship noises, whatever. All these things can totally complete the immersive effect of a haunt scene. But they don't have to make sense. They can be used to confound and confuse as well. If you have lots of small speakers, and you can get computer speakers dirt cheap, you can set up a room to project whispering coming from all directions. All sorts of sound effects could be used this way, but the whispering is really effective because people will struggle to hear what these ghostly voices are saying. And the great thing is, they might not be actually saying anything. It could be nonsense words or backward speech, but the people will still be captivated by it. Some music and sound effects artists, Virgil for example, have entire discs of abstract sound effects that can be looped and run in the background for a variety of atmospheric effects, but there are a lot of audio illusions that have been around for a long time. One of the most awesome abstract sound effects is the shepherd tone, a chord that appears to continually rise or fall in pitch endlessly. It's actually a set of 3 overlapping audio sine waves that begin at evenly spaced intervals of the pitch range, and they repeat one at a time, but people tend to not notice the one that repeats because the other 2 are still progressing along the scale. It's basically the sound version of a barber pole, and the rising version can really amp up the tension in a scene, while the falling tone can give you a great sense of darkness and foreboding. You can find endless variations of shepherd tone on YouTube, or even make your own if you're good with sound mixing software. I used one in the Blackford haunt with a few other sound effects mixed in for the vortex tunnel that we used as our time machine. If you thought vortex tunnels were hard on the equilibrium before, you should have gone through it with that soundtrack playing. Wow. Throughout the years on this show, I've stressed the many ways to unify all the elements, the sound, visuals, acting, in consistent, logical ways that work with the backstory and theme of your haunt. It really helps the audience to immerse themselves in the experience, but sometimes you just need to periodically throw that away and throw the people off balance. Freak them out, misdirect, confound, or just plain confuse the hell out of them. We design these little worlds so we get to decide what reality is, and if they lose their grip on it, even for a moment, in that moment, they are ours. Keep the ghost light burning. From the Theater of the Mind, I'm Revenant, and you're listening to Hauntcast.
One ring!
That's the telephone. I'll answer it.
No, I must count them.
Yeah,
two rings.
I have to answer the phone there.
No, I am counting the rings. Three rings.
Hauntcast Bone Phone.
Hit me up on his CB. We got Gregory Wallace of Wallace Manor. 10-4, good buddy.
10-4. Back in the day, I was the Continental Cowboy.
Hey, Greg, let's dive right in. Hey, the question that's on the tip of everyone's tongues. How'd you come up with the haunt name? I mean, it's genius. Absolutely genius. I figured there had to be a backstory behind it or something. You know?
Yeah, well, I wanted, I live in a cul-de-sac, so I really wanted terror on the cul-de-sac, but I couldn't take that because, Tara had it. Oh. So, actually, the girl, my friend that takes all my photos, she just threw it at me in a photo she edited and added that to the photo, that name, and I just went with it because I couldn't come up with anything, so it was easier to just go with what she had come up with.
Now, you do have kind of... You do have a good backstory, I think, wrapped into it, and I think Revenant might have made a mention of this, and when you were featured in Hauntcast 10th anniversary episode, because you're a big deal. Don't let anybody tell you different. But tell me about your backstory.
So I discovered that back in 1863, a band of Confederate raiders kind of ran through my neighborhood in a way, and then I found out I bought a book of local ghost stories, and I found out there was a ghost story associated with it, and I thought, well, I just have to run with that, you know what I mean? It was John Hunt Morgan's raiders came through my area back in 1863, and I've always dug the Civil War anyway.
Wait a minute. So is Morgan from the Union, or was he from the Confederates?
He was a Confederate.
So he came up there and raped and pillaged and ran amok.
Yeah. Yes, he did. He's from Kentucky, which was a border state, but he's fought for the Confederacy. So, yeah.
Now, how long have you been in the game?
We bought our house in 2006, and that first year we bought our house, I had a Halloween party, and that's kind of how it started.
So were you doing all the typical shit? Were you doing all the haunt forum and Halloween forum? You were doing all that stuff back in the day. Do you still go on there anymore?
Once in a while, not so much anymore.
Yeah. I miss those days. I really do. I
do too.
I seriously, you don't find me too much on Facebook anymore. I hate Facebook now. I really do. I missed it when everything had to be so specific to the topic, everything, you were there for haunting and you had to talk about haunt shit. And that's it.
Yeah, we were having a Halloween party, and my wife was like, "Hey, what kind of recipes could you think we could come up with? Are there any games? That kind of shit." So, I went online and I found, of course, the what is it? The list. What was the list?
The monster list.
Yes, the monster list. That was first.
Is that still around? I haven't looked for that.
It is. It's still there.
Holy shit! And there's tons of stuff on there that can get you killed.
Yes. Yeah.
Or maim your guess.
Yeah. And then I moved on to Halloween forum, haunt forum, so on and so forth. Yeah. But it's not the same anymore. Like
I say, you had that. Then I remember you had the Garage of Evil, and you had the Haunt Space. Do you remember Haunt Space?
I do, but I wasn't.
What was the other one? The Halloween L.
Yeah. I was a little late into that too.
Yeah.
So
there was that email list, which I wouldn't have done that. I don't think. It doesn't appeal to me. But they then they started a forum, which I don't think ever took off because people were on that list, just stayed on the list. I dug into all of these when I started Hauntcast because I needed to promote on every one of them. I remember being on Haunt Space was kind of like MySpace. It had, you could customize your page and do all that shit. So there was just a lot of bad graphics and horrible design all over the place, from people. And it was kind of a ghost town by the time I kind of was promoting there. I only jumped on, promoted the show, and left. That's kind of all I did.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where I found you, was on like Halloween forum or something.
Probably.
I think I've been listening since like episode 3, so like 2007 maybe. Right after we had our party.
Back in the good old days. I'm starting to think of like just 10 years ago was the good old days. It's crazy.
Hey, but someday these will be the good old days.
Maybe. Actually, I'm having the time of my life in general. I mean, I think the world's going absolutely insane, but I'm in the best situation I've ever been in my life. So, I'm living the dream. I'm single. My kids are out of the house.
Empty nester.
Oh, man. Life is good.
We are too.
Life is good. Except for the paying tuition, Except for paying my kids' college, life is fucking good.
We're done with that too.
Oh man, good for you. I'm trying to blast through it as fast as possible. Once they graduate, I'm either selling my business or I'm going to find someone to manage the shop here. I'm going to start one else, and I'm moving down south somewhere. I haven't figured out where, but I'm going somewhere else. But we'll get to that later. Anyway, why are you talking about me? Jesus Christ, I do this
it's your
all
show.
The time. No, it's your show tonight, Greg. Take it away. The mic is yours.
So tell me about. Oh, never mind.
No. Anyway, let's talk about some of your props. You got some good stuff, man. You were like in a flurry of friggin' activity. You were almost like me this year. No, you were killing it this year. You were cranking out some quality props. And this is what I see these people, or I used to see them a lot when they would come in and they would be like new to the whole haunt scene, and they're trying to put together a yard haunt, and they're trying to do everything in 1 year. It's like, dude, if you just do 2, maybe 3 signature pieces each year, within a couple of years, you're going to have an amazing thing. Instead of trying to do 20 half-assed props that are not done well, you put the time into a few of them, and it makes the difference. And man, you crushed it this year. Good job.
I try to do one major thing and maybe improve on a couple old things. You know what I mean? I'm trying to replace my old store-bought stones with,
I saw that you
custom-made ones.
You kind of beefed them up and added some backing, and made them out like 2 to 3 inches thick.
Yeah, the ones I like. Yeah.
Yeah, you carved out a few of your own. Did you do Did you do a couple of new stones this year, or did you just kind of patch up some of the old ones?
I think I did one new one.
Yeah.
I try to do a new one every year.
Yeah,
one big thing and one like nice new stone. You know what I mean?
That's what did I add? Did I do a new stone this year? I might not have added a new stone this year. I did a lot of reworking things this year on my side. But once again, I'm doing it again. I'm getting it off onto me. It's not about me. So believe I'm like, there's a bunny. Is that a bunny? I'm like bunny trailing off all over the place. So let's get into the props specifically. I'm just talk about the build on a few of the your signature. Yeah, your signed pieces that are collector's items already. I guess let's just dive right into Richard's tomb sarcophagus.
Yeah. So that was what was that? 2017 now.
Oh, has that been around for a full year? I thought you reworked it or something.
Nope, didn't do anything to it. Nope.
Oh, okay.
I won the Canadian Hunters Award for best static prop for that prop, though. It's a major award winner. That was cool, you know.
It's a major award. You won. All right. Just explain the build to everybody. What is it? Did you have a store-bought skeleton on top?
I bought a store-bought skeleton. I replaced the skull on it because I hate the skulls that come with the store-bought skeletons. I don't think they look right with the skeleton. So I used one of the Nightmare Maker's foam skulls. I don't know if I molded it or not. I have a mold now. I don't know if I did that one with the mold or not. I might have just bought the skull. Used monster mud, over top of it. First time I ever used monster mud on that prop. I took some more of the Nightmare Maker skulls and put them around the sides. Had some 45-degree PVC pipe coming out their mouth so the fog would blow out their mouths. Had the fog machine inside the tomb hooked up to those pipes.
Now, are those skulls a soft foam or a hard foam?
They're a hard foam.
How much do they go for a piece?
I don't know. Maybe $10-12 for.
That's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing.
Good deal. That's a wicked bargain, as they say around here. All right.
It is. And actually, I had some old skulls, like flat back skulls from Terror Syndicate, that I put on the head and the foot of it, which didn't have
a blast from the past.
I know, right? But I had them.
Dude,
I'm like,
is that site still around too, or?
I think it is, but I don't know if he's all that active anymore.
Hickman, right? Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, Steve Hickman.
Yeah. Good guy.
Yeah.
All right, so you get some PVC coming out. Did you just have one fogger in there, or did you have to hook up a couple? Just
one fogger going through some corrugated, I don't know what it is, the like sump pump pipe kind of stuff, black pipe, going to the 45-degree PVC elbows coming out the mouths of the skulls. Put it on a timer and go.
I built my tomb a number of years ago. Very simple one, not as elaborate anywhere as elaborate as yours. Did you do just kind of 2x3 frame on that, or what did you use for the framing?
Yeah, it's 1x2, I believe. It's a big 1x2 rectangular box, Cover it with foam.
And it's heavy enough that doesn't move around?
Nah. Yeah. No, it's heavy enough. Put it all in 1-inch foam originally, and then put another layer of 1-inch foam over top of that with like squares cut out around the skulls, and then routed out with my Dremel Trio, so it gave it some thickness. And the lid of it's like 2-inch foam with another piece of 1-inch foam on top of that, and then the skeleton on top of that with the monster mud and everything. So it doesn't go anywhere.
Now, did you build Cookie, your Calden creep type dude, this year?
No.
No.
That was probably 3 or 4 years ago now. That was the big build of that year.
And So same construction as the Calden Creep, the same type of stir.
Yep.
That little What kind of motor do you use for those?
For the stirring part?
Yeah.
Well, there's a wiper motor inside the cauldron.
That's just the wiper motor.
Yeah.
Do you have to
spin
slow
around.
it down, or do you? Yeah.
Yeah, I use it on. I might use it on the 5-volt instead of the 12. It's a 12-volt wiper motor. Put 5 volts to it. It's automatically half the speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can slow it down that way.
One way to go.
It works. You don't lose any torque.
Go buy something to like with the potentiometer and slow it down, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I use all my. I think all my wiper.
I love the low tech.
5-volt. Yeah. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. Does he also have the one glowing eye, like the cannon fire
he does.
character? Is that just a ping pong ball with an LED in it, or is that something that you picked up somewhere?
It's actually I got it from Monster Guts. They're the roll-on deodorant balls.
Oh, that's it?
Yep.
That's them.
Drill a hole in it, stick an LED in it, and go.
I like the look. I like the one eye that's glowing. I'm like, you know what I have to do? I'm going to steal that from you this year. If I do anything, any type of skull, or if I might add one to like the little groundbreaker skeleton now that I have. I might add the glowing LED eye just to spice him up this year.
And I've thought about how I haven't been doing it with like one eye hanging out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of a
one
cool
eye
idea.
in, one eye hanging out.
If you could, you just put something on there like some maybe yarn and latex red, and like make it look like it dripping out of his socket. That'd be kind of cool. There's a number of different pieces to your Civil War cannon. I mean, this was your huge build of the year. So
last
2018. Year. So I guess, just take a step on the build of that, because that, I know Rev covered it last segment. But pretend you didn't hear it, guys. No, there's probably a lot he couldn't get to, so go for it.
And Rev killed it, by the way. You guys, it was awesome the way he did it. So, I've seen, lots of people have built pirate cannons, and things like that. I've seen on Halloween forum, Haunt forum, and I kind of took those builds and kind of added. I needed someone to fire it. You know what I mean? Everyone else just has the cannon just firing, and mine needed someone to fire it, so I did that to make it kind of my own. But basically, it's a 10-inch quickcrete. Concrete tube for, building footers, I guess, for decks and things like that. I don't really do that, but I guess that's what they're for. And I cut out a, triangle wedge out of the tube and kind of tapered it. Wrapped some Gorilla tape around it. Covered it in Monster Mud. I added some foam to flare the ends, a pot top, or the top to a pot to for the breech, the end of the cannon. Made some trunnions, which is the part that sticks out from the sides of the cannon, so it fits into the carriage. Made those out of.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So there was just a couple sports water bottles I cut to shape and paper mache them on there. Keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah. You had to coat it with something, obviously, to protect it. So what did you coat it with?
Actually, I didn't. I just painted it, and I did. But now I have to coat it with something.
Now you're like, oh shit.
Yeah, because was rainy last fall and last Halloween, and now I've realized when I was bringing it in that this is kind of warping and things like that.
Kinda does that?
It
when
does.
Water hits paper.
Well, I had Monster Mud on it and exterior household paint, but apparently that wasn't enough. And I'm sure the fog inside the tube. Didn't really help with that. It probably kind of softened up from the inside out, really. You know what I mean? So, I'm gonna have to hit it with my use my new critter gun, right, that I got for Christmas. And
Yeah, that was actually in my show prep. You got to be shitting me.
and hit it with some, polyurethane or something.
You heard me talking about that critter gun just too many times. You're like, I got to get my hand on. Oh.
Well, it wasn't just you. I mean, evil Ted, right? And like everywhere.
Oh,
critter
yeah,
gun.
I'm sure. I know I'm not the only person who watches Evil Ted, so it's not like I discovered it or anything. I got it from him. And then I talked to him, and he's like, "Oh, you can also get these other things that are cheaper." And I'm like, "Well, I love my critter gun, and I'm going to run that thing into the ground."
Right. Yeah, you have to get a bunch of mason jars and.
I know. I did. I bought. Went down to the hardware store, and I bought a dozen or so of them. Or a couple of dozen of them. They're great.
Yeah.
Like have one you can use for water to clean it out when you're
right.
done. And the other, a number of different paint colors, and it's great because you can just, you see the color. If you're looking for, I got to touch up the mantis. Oh, the green's right there. Boom, you're done.
Right.
It's really simple and easy.
Yeah, I got one of those, the Wagner, power sprayer things. Mm-hmm. And that thing's it's just a pain in the ass. You got to take it apart every time you use it, and there's like 20 little tiny gaskets, and then there's this little pin, and it's just a mess.
Those things are an absolute clusterfuck. I painted houses for a summer, and we had bought one, and the guy had to spend about a half hour doing cleanup at the end of the day, so that we could use it again the next day.
Right.
Clogged with paint and crap.
Yep.
So you then the wheels.
So the wheels, right? We're from At Home, a store home decorative store, I guess is what you call it. They're actually like wooden, I guess people hang them on their walls or whatever. But about the biggest ones they had, they were like $30-$40. You know what I mean? I looked at some real wagon wheels online, but people want crazy money, hundreds and hundreds of dollars because they're antiques or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I had to scale everything to the size of the wheels I could find.
And you're not hooking a buggy up to the damn things,
That's
so
right.
it's. I'm sure
I don't even use the wheels.
The ones you put out in the garden will do, right?
That's right. I don't even wheel it out there. I carry it out there and set it down.
Place it.
Yeah. So the carriage is built out of 2-inch foam, all glued together. Got I think it's 1.5-inch PVC going through the carriage and then into the cannon, and hooked up to a fog machine. There's a little the highest speed CPU fan I could find. I hooked inside the cannon to a piece of PVC. So the idea was that the back of the cannon would kind of fill up with fog, and then the fan would go and it would blow out. You know what I mean? Real quick
Oh, is that how it's done? How does that mechanism work? That's it.
That was the plan, and it works almost like that. Yeah,
almost. You have a little controller hooked up to it, so it does trigger the sound effect, and the fan goes off and blows some of the fog out.
Yep. Yeah, I got the old $20 Arduino prop controller. I got one relay control on the fan, one relay control on the LED lights that I put into the muzzle of the cannon to create a cannon muzzle flash. One controls the skeleton, which turns at its waist to pull the cord that fires the cannon, and then one controls sound. I guess that's how it works.
So for the twisting mechanism for him at the hips, you have the torso mounted to a round piece of plywood or something, or
no, it's from Spider Hill Prop Works. I can't remember what he calls it, but it's the one that he has one that turns at the torso and holds a lantern or something on his website he sells, and that's the one I used. I just hooked it up to a picovolt.
Yeah.
So I can control when it stops and when it starts and stops, so it always kind of ends in the same position. You know what I mean? So it always is at the ready to fire position every time.
Yeah. I just picked up 3 of those picovolts this year for my haunt because I didn't want to run pneumatics out there, and so I got into the linear actuators. So the picovolts work perfect with the linear actuator. I was trying to get them to work right with the what is it? The monster? Not the monster shield. The Octopill.
Yeah.
The Octopill that runs with the Arduino Nano.
That's what I was kind of. That was what I was using, an Octopill.
Yeah,
but I only use 4. I only use 4 relays though instead of the 8.
Yeah, it's a great little controller, but it was. I was having problems with the servo. With the linear actuator. I don't know why. I thought I had it wired up properly. I had used one last year for a coffin door that just kind of opened up a little bit and closed. Just like the lid.
Right.
Like the Haunted Mansion type style.
Right.
And it worked great. And for some reason, I tried to program it the same way. I couldn't figure it out. I got frustrated. I'm like, fuck this. Jumped on the right props and brought a couple of them. And I was like, they're so easy. They're so stupidly easy to use, the picovolt, that is. So
right.
The picovolt worked great. Had no problems. Everything worked out.
Yeah, the picovolt. I bought the picovolt originally because the Richard's Tomb was originally supposed to work like the Haunted Mansion thing, where the top kind of raised and lowered, but it never got that far. So
that prop just seemed to go its own way, right?
It did,
as they do.
Yes, that's right. Sometimes they tell you what they want to be.
Yeah. Sometimes they do. More often.
I was working on that damn thing.
Not.
Halloween, the day of Halloween, I was working on that thing before I put it out, trying to get that thing to work, and it wasn't happening.
And so the muzzle, or whatever that part of whatever you call that as part of the cannon, that's all. It was just coated with monster mud, and you dry brushed it with some white to give it that kind of bumpy cast iron metal kind of look.
Yeah, I stippled the monster mud on, with the brush to give it a stippled, a cast iron, old pitted cast iron look. And then I hit it with the modern masters like bronze paint, and then they have a patina spray, spray on it, so it gives it the look of aged bronze.
Yeah, well,
so that's what that was.
You had some excellent props out there this year. You're really leveling up Wallace Manor, my friend. I will not say next level anymore. It's leveling up. Everyone can start using that right now. Leveling up. So you are a member of the Ohio's Haunters Association?
Yes, I am. I'm a proud member of the Ohio Haunters Association.
What do you guys do? Do you actually get together a couple of times a year, make and takes all that business, or is it more organized or less than that?
Well, it's a new thing. We do get together once a month. I have yet to go to one yet. They have usually have a monthly thing. I haven't gone to one yet because I'm way down here in southern Ohio, and they're usually up in central and northern. But they do have monthly get-togethers. They're doing the Ohio Halloween and Haunters Convention this year up at the penitentiary where Shawshank was filmed. I can't remember what it's called right now, but that's where that's at. So I'll be going to that in May, doing a ghost hunt and all that fun kind of stuff.
Are they trying to take over the Midwest in Ohio? Is that kind of their intention of what they're trying to do, or not quite?
I don't know that they're taking over is the term.
No, that's not correct. Yeah, they're not holding a coup or whatever, storming the gates.
But I think
are they trying to fill a void for people who don't want to go to Chicago?
Right, that's what I think. I think that they felt like there was a void since Midwest was moving Chicago, and might as well fill that void. And as long as and I know they don't want to interfere with Midwest, so that's why it's in May, and Midwest is in June, I guess. So it's not like the same time, so everyone can go to everything and do everything they want. You know, they're not trying to take it over.
We're all friends here. We can all get along. There's enough room for everybody. Relax, people. Yeah. All right, Greg. Well, look, you're rocking it. What are you working? You have anything in mind? What's going to be your signature piece coming up in 2019? I'm putting you on the spot. I'm calling you out right now.
I know, and if I say it, I have to build it, right?
I guess so.
Because then it's out there and everyone knows. So
I mean, I'm not going to come to Ohio and flog you if you don't. I might ridicule you on Hauntcast, but that's about it.
I want to build a old horse-drawn hearse this year. That's the goal.
Yeah, it's an ambitious goal. Those things take a lot of work from what I've seen from other builds. So, we're holding you to it.
And damn it, Home Depot stopped selling their damn skeleton horse now. It's discontinued.
Oh, you got to be kidding me.
No. Sons
of a bitches. Now the price, you'll find them used online for big money. Like,
yeah.
This is a limited edition horse skeleton. All right, man. Well, look, thank you. Thank you so much for your long-term support, for being around for the last 7-8 years, hanging with the Scream team. We appreciate it. Thank you for your cash, helping keep us afloat, keeping the Hauntcast ship sailing along. It's always appreciated. You're a great guy. It was good hanging out with you at Midwest that time 5 years ago. Unfortunately, we didn't have a ton of time. I was also dragging ass because that was the day after I vomited in the restaurant back room. So it was a tough weekend.
Yeah, I was looking at the picture of you in your Warriors costume or whatever. That's what the baseball player, whatever it is.
I saw that picture online and I went like, "Holy, am I that fat now? Holy, I've taken off some weight." That was kind of a wake up call. I was like, holy shit, man, I was hot.
And JT was there, too.
Yeah, so I guess standing next to him, I didn't look so bad. All right. Hey, man, thanks so much. Keep rocking it.
All right.
Killing it out there in Ohio.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, man. Take care.
See you.
Children shouldn't play with dead things.
The children had such a lovely time. It's too bad nobody ever told them. Children shouldn't play with dead things.
women into uncontrolled hysteria, to prey upon the innocence of children.
Shocktails with Johnny Thunder.
I wonder if it isn't all a dream, a nightmare.
He doesn't have a drinking problem, but he has problems, so he drinks. It's our master of ceremonies, Johnny Thunder.
What's going on, dude?
Hey, you missed me?
Yeah, I haven't talked to you in, well, I don't know what did Skype say. It was like 11, whatever.
Well, you text me once a week telling me you miss me. So
Wait, did somebody spoof my phone? Because that's obviously not. That's obviously not me.
That a clone? It's like what it's clone.
Oh, is that what the
fuck they call it?
Yeah, it's cloning, I guess. No, I don't think we. I don't know. What did you? No, you texted. Well, once in a while we'll text, "Hey, happy weekend," and it's like, "Aw, hugs." But
you take a picture of your beer and you're
right.
Like, cheers. Hey.
Right. I think it was my beer. Oops. Wait. So
it was short, so it might have been something else. I don't know. It's a short beer.
Yeah, it was a shot. Yeah, it's even smaller than a shot glass. My wife is one lucky gal.
A shot of chowder.
So what's going on with you? So you've been what? You're busy with this wig shop or what is it? You have a wig shop? What do you have? What is that? The wig shop?
So the best of my knowledge, I think it is a smartphone and tablet repair shop.
Oh.
But
really?
I mean, you might be right. It could be a wig shop. It could be gaslighting me.
I can't tell the difference. But so what? So things are good, but then what? You're thinking about franchising?
No, well, okay.
Like McDonald's.
Some lawyer, some franchise broker from your area, actually, he's down in Pennsylvania, contacted me and he's like, "Hey, I'm looking to, I get calls from people who are looking to get into this type of franchise, and we kind of talked, and he said, we could do X, Y, and Z. They don't really promise you shit, really. They wanted some money up front, and then they get like a 20% off of any franchise I sell, and and then they take money, like they put together some kind of like.
So this sounds wait
sounds like a clusterfuck.
Yeah, I was going to say it's like the honeymooners. It's like all your other get rich quick schemes, right?
Yeah, just like the whole Patreon debacle.
No, I was thinking we're going national, or we're doing some other nonsense, or we're doing something.
No, dude, we were doing great, and then I've watched over the last couple of months as people keep dropping off or downsizing the amount of money that they're donating. Like I'll see somebody like they went from like $10 to $1. I'm like, dude, come on.
So soon you'll be given refunds, or what are we doing?
Well, if we drop below $8.33 a month, we're going to start dropping episodes.
How many shows are left under the?
We go until like the summer, I think. How many? Because I put out one almost immediately.
Yeah, I know you cranked.
We did about 3, 4. So there's really only a couple more left, technically. We'll have like April, June, and then we'll figure out what to do from there.
Yeah.
If we have any supporters left by that point, which we probably won't.
Oops.
It's fun. We had a good run.
How many times can we say that? I mean, Jesus Christ.
No, it's getting ridiculous now.
I think it's like Batman and the Joker. I think we're like entwined in this for the rest of our lives. Like we're just never gonna not do this.
We'll just start doing like one every other year, just to keep it going.
Right. We'll add
we'll be like 85.
Oh my God.
Drooling on ourselves.
Well, go ahead.
So, dude, how's your little side hustle going?
Hustle.
Yeah, you have that little side hustle with the healing crystal dildo shop that you.
That's
going.
That's going pretty well. But I just got raided by the cops because I was also trying to start an illegal, hemp shop. I've been doing some deliveries to Massachusetts, and.
By the way, that last delivery was amazing. I have
your magical cannabis crystal dildo.
Yeah, no. Wait, whoa, what?
Whoa, that took a weird turn. Or did it?
Or did it? Yeah, I have this rolling dispensary that just shows up at my door. Like, I text him a couple of days later. He pops in because it's all legal in Massachusetts now. So he just rolls up. He's got a smorgasbord. He opens up. He's got gummies. He's got bonbons, chocolate bars.
Did you have to get in the back of his van, or
no? He comes. Into my house down to the rape dungeon.
Good Lord!
I keep him in line.
So have we completely given up on the family-friendly aspect of the show, or
whatever, you know? I don't know how many people are really. I don't even check the numbers anymore. I don't even give a shit if anybody's listening.
Exactly.
It's an excuse to talk to you every couple of months.
Oh,
I know.
Softy.
It's the only thing that keeps us together.
Oh my God.
I know. I'm fucking gay. So what's going on, dude? Did you already buy your tickets to Tranny World? I mean, Trans World. I mean, I got to be careful now.
Yeah, I did. So
from all of the social media.
Yeah, so barring any further, disruption to government functions, hopefully my flight can get out on March 31st. So I'm flying out that Thursday. Like the usual, like get there Thursday around like 1 o'clock or so, 2 o'clock, and I fly out Sunday morning. So yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. I mean, well, it's always a good time. You can't go this year because I think you have to, wash your hair or
I have to dry
shave your back.
Americans.
Yeah. It's something going on.
I actually have family vacation that I'm doing with my kids at the beginning of March, so I just can't swing doing both in 1 month. It just can't happen.
Yeah,
I got to shut the business down for a week, and I'm just losing money there and spending what I'm not making down in Disney World. It's going to be my last trip doing this. I bought into that DVC, and the kids are getting old. The kids are now freshmen in college. I got 2 boys in college, and paying out of the ass for their tuition because I'm trying to keep ahead of myself. I'm trying to keep the interest down. And
there's banks or there's money clips. You don't have to keep it up your ass.
Well, I just find it safer there.
Well, you were talking about maybe going pro. Do you think you would? Are you still looking into that?
I think I've completely dismissed that as an option. After the conversation I had with Dick and then Ed, I think I was completely. They took all the wind out of my sails. I was
completely disabused of the notion that sounded like a good idea.
Like, oh my God! Seriously, if I was going to put in, I could put in a fraction of the effort, open up a second repair shop close by somewhere, and make a lot more money out of the gate. And I don't have to deal with all of those. I think the problem that I couldn't foresee, that's probably more complicated than anything, is dealing with all the fucking actors. And I just don't think I want to deal with all those kind of cases.
Wait, I think I've just been offended.
Present company included.
I think for the first time on this godforsaken show, I've just been offended. I'm outraged. I'm triggered. I'm triggered.
That can't be possible. I had to have offended you way, way back.
No, I'm dead inside.
So what else? What else you had to go on? You did something, some video shoots or something with the Bates, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a pretty cool project, and it was awesome because my daughter got to be involved with it. It's a project we shot at the Bates. What was it? It was the day after my birthday. Yeah, thank you for the happy birthday present. It was awesome. The same thing I got you last year, but in a bigger box. So it was on January 5th. We were up there for about 5 hours. We filmed. Pretty cool project. We can't talk about it yet. It'll be coming out, I think, in October. It'll be up on the website, hopefully, and also on YouTube. But it was awesome because it was a full costume. I was dressed up like Bubba, and my daughter got to go, and she wore her Prairie Girl costume from last Halloween and got to be fully made up, which she was thrilled. I mean, she was just beside herself. The pictures are up on Facebook and Instagram, but she had a blast. So we had a lot of fun that day. So, like I said, when it's released, I think Sean said it should be up probably during this upcoming haunt season. I'll definitely share it on Facebook and mention it on the show. But yeah, it was fun. It was a lot of fun, especially to work with her, because like my daughter obviously is really into Halloween and haunting. But she loves like makeup. Like I said, she likes to watch Face Off and even watch the repeats and stuff. So she was fascinated watching, her makeup artist Sarah work on her, and then watch Sean do my makeup and everything else. So it was fun. It was very cool. Very cool. So it was one of those things where it was a long day, but by the same token, like they said, it's like something she'll never forget. So
no, I actually
it was like take your kid to work day, but it was actually cool work.
Hey, dude, who's your sponsor?
This time around, I am sponsored by 2SP Baby Bob Stout. What about you, genius?
Dude, about time you mixed it up. You've been running sponsor for the last 7 episodes or something.
Listen, I'm not going to just pick a different beer. Look, all right, you know what I'll do? I'll just start making up beer. I'll just start picking different beers that I drink, and I'll just mention them on the air. But I mean, like 2SP is my go-to, so you know what? Back off.
But anyway, my sponsor is 125 milligram THC infused lemonade. Turn that frown upside down and suck on this lemonade. Get high on your own supply, brother. Good shit. Jimmy. I got to be careful because I'm not measuring this out. So if I drink this whole bottle, I am gonna be freaking.
This is gonna be another
bouncing off the friggin' walls. Holy!
Yes,
I've already got about a quarter of it done. So
yeah, it's gonna be weird. I've had a bunch of people ask me like, "What the hell are you gonna do with yourself at Transworld this year since you don't have to babysit Baker?" Like, I don't know. All this free time on my hands.
You could leave the papoose at home.
And that's what I was thinking. It's like, everyone's like, dude, he's usually passed out by 9 o'clock and you're out by yourself with other people, meeting other people up anyway. And I'm like, yeah, what the hell do I need that cat for? But all right. So before we start this nonsense, hey, and I guess we should just say all I'm doing this time are a bunch of movie reviews. I actually totally forgot about that we were doing this show. So I did watch some movies, but I was going to ask you before we talk about this, did you see anything? Did you watch any?
I did catch Bird Box.
Oh, okay. And did you want to talk about that other thing, or you just want to?
Sliders of Ghost Town.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about those two or not?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have really too much to go into about Sliders because I didn't make notes on it. I was hoping that I didn't realize you didn't have a Blu-ray player. I wasn't even thinking about it, so I just sent it off. And I didn't read your text until after I dropped it in the mail. So.
Well, of course. Well, of course, I mean, why should it be any different than any other time? But I'm saying, like, at the point where things like kind of converted over, at this point, all the screeners and everything I get are digital, and I mean, everything's just online. So that's when you sent it. I was like, but I had gotten a communication from the guy who had sent that to you. So I was just wondering if you want to talk about it a little bit.
I really dug it. It was great. It's a documentary on Not Scary Farm. And it goes into really in depth the guys who started sliding, the couple of guys who were kind of like the creators of the whole technique, and how they kind of hone their skills and their practice, and how you have to audition, the audition process, and it's just tons of footage of these guys at night. You're just in Ghost Town and all around the park. I watched the whole thing straight through. No checking the watch. It was just great. I thought it was one of the best documentaries I've seen that was like a haunt related, documentary. It wasn't just about haunts. It's kind of about that specific haunt. And how that kind of spread. People started seeing videos of these guys, and then people started popping up all over the country. So it really did kind of blossom right out of Not Scary Farm. So, yeah, it's worth you got to catch it.
Cool.
It's definitely worth a watch.
Nice.
So, all right, what did you catch? What'd you watch?
Well, I saw a couple flicks. What did I see? Terror Tales, The Clove Hitch. What is it? The Clove Hitch Killer. Easy for me to say. Rust Creek. Revenge.
That's what I'm supposed to say. You took my line from me.
But we'll start off with Escape Room.
You want to control your life. but life isn't a science experiment. You can't contain your world forever. Try doing one thing that scares you over break, okay?
Yeah. This serves as an entry voucher
for Minos escape rooms.
Be the first to escape our most immersive room yet.
And win $1 million.
So, when does the game start?
I think this is the escape room. We should look for clues.
What are we looking for here?
Anything that looks like a puzzle or a code. It looks like an oven dial.
That looks real.
It's kind of warming up in here.
Excuse me. We'd like our hit now, please.
Well, that's creepy as hell.
Yeah, so, Escape Room is one of those that I saw that it was coming out, and I didn't really pay too much attention to it because I was sort of like, I think from what I remember from the trailer, it almost looked like a really watered-down, crappy kind of a Saw movie. But a couple weeks ago, out of the blue, I got a text from Revenant, and he's like, hey, I don't know if you saw this, but he was like snowed in or something. There was like a snowstorm, and he kind of had to bide his time at a mall or something. And he went into the movie theater, and this was sort of like, all right. He's like, this was the least offensive movie that was there. And he came out of it, and he said, I liked it. He goes, just go see it. And he's like, I'd like to see what you guys think about it for the next show. Rated PG-13. There's some, it's terror, action, violence, some suggestive language. Basically, it's 6 strangers receive these invitations in the mail to come and test out this, quote unquote, extreme immersive escape room. And the person who wins the escape room will get a prize of $10,000. So they show up. They're locked in several rooms. There's like 5 rooms, I think, in total with these crazy extreme conditions. And at the end, they kind of discover the secrets behind what's going on and who invited them and how they're all brought together into this really weird plot. Like Revenant said, I was really, really pleasantly surprised by this one. It's nothing revolutionary, doesn't reinvent, horror or thrillers or anything like that. It's about an hour and a half, and I dug it. Like I said, it was pretty well acted. You've got in here, you've got actors. She played Judy Robinson in the Netflix Lost in Space remake. You've got the guy that played Dale from Tucker and Dale. You have a kid from, the Scouts Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse? He's in there. You have the actor who played Karen Page on Daredevil and The Punisher. And the characters are pretty likable. The set design is really well done. The actual rooms themselves are pretty well done. And it's just a really, really entertaining flick. I would say it's maybe a cross between, there's no gore, there's nothing like gross about it, but I'd say Saw and, as Revenant said, The Cube, with a little bit of maybe Cabin in the Woods and Hostel thrown in. And I don't mean Hostel in terms of any kind of violence, but just in terms of these sort of a conspiracy behind what's going on there. So I got to say, like, Revenant and I spoke about it too, and pleasantly surprised. I keep saying that, but that's what I would say about this. It's pretty light. It moves fast, likable characters, well shot, and this was probably one of my favorite movies that I saw this month. So
I wanted to get out because Rev sent me the same text, and I said, "Damn it, let me." So I jumped on and I checked the local theaters, and it wasn't anywhere near me. And I'm like, I'm not driving an hour to go see it.
Yeah.
So I had to pass, unfortunately.
Yeah, but definitely, like I said, I couldn't believe it because I wasn't. Like he even said I wasn't expecting much, and I'm sitting there. I was like, wow, this is actually pretty good. Great ending. Great cliffhanger, completely sets up a sequel, and they could probably knock a couple of these out, every other year or so, and this could be a good franchise. And I think the budget was about $9 million, and so far it's grossed about $42 to $45 million. So it's made money.
Good.
So hopefully they come back with a second one. Great film, like just in terms of for what it is. Again, there's nothing crazy about it, but I dug it. Now, a movie that I saw a screener of called Terror Tales.
Oh, Michael, you should know me well enough by now. My stories never have happy endings. The devil is real.
I'm so sorry. I have something for you.
Go with God.
What else did you see on those tapes?
They're onto you, boy. Be careful, okay?
Let's continue, shall we?
You want to see crazy? Cause you ain't seen nothing yet! Are we having fun yet, Michael?
Well, that was fun. Story time's over.
This is a movie, it's an anthology, which I always dig, of course. And there's a framing sequence. When abducted by a psychopath, a husband is taken on a ride from hell where he's subjected to 3 horrific tales of terror while his family is held captive in the attached cargo trailer. So there's a husband and a wife and a daughter. They're out on vacation, and this psycho kidnaps them, throws the wife and the daughter back in the trailer, has the husband in the passenger seat, and then basically tells him 3 different sort of horror tales. And I guess the draw about this one is there's a bunch of different actors from a lot of 80s slasher films in it. You've got people from Sleepaway Camp, from Friday the 13th. You have some people from, I think it's the People Under the Stairs. You've got, people from Critters 2, The Crazies, just all these kind of like actors that you might remember from back in the day. Overall, it's a little uneven. There's only 3 stories. I found one of the stories sort of interesting. I actually found the framing sequence the most interesting of it, which maybe isn't necessarily that great. It's on the lower budget side. It's more so sort of the, oh, hey, there's so-and-so, or hey, I recognize that actor from this movie. I don't know that I'd spend money on it. Again, I got a screener of it, so it was fine for what it was, but it wasn't necessarily the favorite thing that I've seen this month. So that one, I'd probably say skip. I just didn't really dig it that much at all. Now, moving on to a movie that I wasn't familiar with, but I saw on a bunch of best horror movies of 2018 lists, right? So this is called The Clove Hitch Killer.
You know about that clove hitch stuff, right?
10 official victims. No fingerprints, no blood. Just the clove hitch tied to every victim's house.
I've been meaning to talk to you. You know we're made in God's image. But men like you and me, we got thoughts.
I don't think he stopped killing. I think there's more than 10 victims.
You can't control what pops into your head, right?
He has pictures.
I mean, what if a thought popped into your head right now? A bad thought.
Does that look like your father's handwriting?
Something like grabbing one of these tools and wham! There. Awkward talk with Dad. Over.
You think your dad is clove hitch?
I don't know.
So it revolves around this teenage boy who lives in this really, really uptight, religious Kentucky town. And he and his parents and his sister, they're churchgoers. He's a Boy Scout. It's this very, very uptight, crazy community. But hanging kind of like a shadow over this whole town are the unsolved murders. There were 10 women who were brutally murdered and tortured by a serial killer known as Clove Hitch. And Clove Hitch is a type of knot. So the kid, the teenager, kind of discovers some clues that leads him to believe that his father may actually be the serial killer. So, it kind of sounds like, whatever, but this one, it's very low key. It's not gory. It's not graphic, but this is a flick that I dug because it really, really hinges on the performances. And Dylan McDermott plays the dad, who again is the Boy Scout troop leader, church youth group leader, and he comes off obviously as the do-gooder, perfect picture, family man and so forth. But it turns out, spoilers, he is the serial killer. So there's a lot of tension. It's very understated, a lot of the scenes where they're confronting each other and things are finally revealed. They're not necessarily played the way you think they're going to be played. And it's like I said, a very quiet picture, but a very disturbing picture. The teenage son's performance is very well. His friend that helps him solve sort of the mysteries is actually pretty likable as well. What I also dug about this was there's some nonlinear storytelling in it. So I'd say a little after halfway through the movie, they kind of tell the story from one character's perspective, and then 3/4 of the movie, they stop it and basically rewind to halfway through, and then you see the whole movie again, but from another character's perspective, which might sound a little strange, but it was really well done. And the same way with the ending, there's sort of this 15-20 minute ending to the film, but there's also a series of flashbacks. So it's pretty well crafted in terms of the story itself. That plus the performances, I thought was enough for me. So if you're a fan of Dylan McDermott like I am, I would check this out if you haven't seen it yet. Again, it's not gory, it's not over the top, it's not really crazy, even though there's it's about a serial killer, but it was pretty well done. So this one I definitely recommend. Kind of along the same lines, there's this flick called Rust Creek.
Turn left.
Think they seen us?
You need some help there, miss?
I was on my way to DC.
These woods, they can be a crazy place. Come on, it's
What's your name?
If you let me go, I promise I won't tell anyone anything.
You wouldn't make it 100 yards to shape your end.
The driver's name is Sawyer Scott. Nobody seems to know where she's at.
They find you here, they'll kill you.
Rated R for violence, language, and drugs. Drugs.
They had to go there.
Drugs. So this, so now
I have a feeling you're looking at me through the mic. Just shoot me that glance.
I'm undressing you with my eyes.
Yikes.
What? Yow! That took a weird turn. So this one, like from the description, I didn't know anything about it. Again, it's on demand. I was like, I'll so whatever. So it's this college student. Again, she's in Kentucky. It was like the Kentucky day of flicks, whatever. So this young college student, she's in this college in Kentucky. She's, I think, driving to Washington, D.C. for a job interview. And then the whole plot is her car breaks down, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, so it's this crazy, she breaks down out in the countryside, and maybe there's this over the top, maybe it's sort of a I Spit on Your Grave or Last House on the Left, or maybe it's like a Wrong Turn or Texas Chainsaw, you know what I mean? Like, you don't know what's going to happen. So she's driving out, she breaks down. These two rednecks come up and try to assault her. She's pretty well versed in self-defense, thankfully, and gets away from them. And then there's this long extended period of her just trying to survive in the wilderness. And there's this whole thing with a corrupt cop, and the rednecks are cooking meth. And then she finds the meth cooker with a heart of gold who protects her. And there's a lot of just sitting around and talking, and nothing really happens, and nothing really happens, and nothing really happens. Like I said, I went into this thinking it's going to be a little bit more of a, if you're going to make sort of an exploitive exploitive movie, maybe just kind of be a little bit more over the top, or go in the monster direction, or make it, like I said, full of gore and violence and everything else. I think this was trying to be a little bit more serious of a film, and trying to be a little, I don't know, maybe more important than it was, and trying to be a little bit, I don't know, I guess I would say thriller. There's not a lot of horror in it. The lead actor, she was fine. I mean, she actually was pretty good. But overall, I was kind of bored. Like, not a lot happens. And I don't know that I was invested really in any of the characters. So this one, I even debated then whether or not I should even review it, because it came up though on IFC Midnight on my on-demand service. So usually those are horror and those kind of films. I've said about 35 times so far this segment, but
I know.
Yeah. So this one was a little bit boring. I wasn't too thrilled with this one, but what's funny is there was another flick that I saw on the 2018 best of lists. So this one was called Revenge.
Stan Dimitri, my associates.
Hi.
Women always have to put up a fight.
Now, everything that I criticized Russ Creek about, revenge is exactly what you want if you're going into this kind of film. So Revenge is rated R for strong, bloody, gruesome violence. Like, that's literally what it says: strong, bloody, gruesome violence, graphic nudity, drug use, language, and there is suggestion of a rape perpetrated on the one character. So the story is basically these 3 millionaire middle-aged CEOs, they're all married, get together for an annual hunting game out in a desert canyon. And the film's, it's weird because it's part spoken in French and then part spoken in English. So this time, the one main dude who has a wife, but he brings along this young, I don't know, she's probably in her 20s or something. So she's this aspiring actress, and she thinks that this guy can get her into like movies in Hollywood or whatever. So they never really explain what these 3 guys do for a living, but you get the idea they're like in organized crime or drugs or some cartel or something. So basically it turns into they're all partying, this and that. Then one of them attacks the girlfriend. The guy who's with her then decides that, you know, this is a bad idea. She threatens to go to his wife. And then, of course, he pushes her off a cliff and leaves her for dead, right? So this is where it kicks in, which is it. And it is batshit crazy, over the top, guns and blood and violence and shooting and gore, and it's one of the bloodiest, crazy movies I've ever seen. Like I said, it's just gunfire and craziness, and it's just crazy. You know, it's everything you want in some of the. It's definitely an exploitation.
Is it crazy good?
Oh yeah. I dug it totally. Like I said, because I watched Rust Creek, and then the next day I watched Revenge, and I was like, hey, this is kind of what I wanted that movie to be. Just nuts, just over the top, crazy. I've never seen so much blood in my life. It is wild. I said there's only the 4 characters, and they're out in the desert. So what's cool is, too, the cinematography and some of the shots of the desert and this crazy modern glass house and stuff out in the middle of this desert are really, really bizarre. But the chase sequences, the shootings, there's the finale itself where she confronts the boyfriend, where they're both trying to murder each other, and it's a game of cat and mouse in this ultra modern house. It's really, really well done, and as I said, just bloody as hell. So I don't know if this will be everybody's cup of tea, but it's definitely over the top and entertaining as hell. If you're going into this knowing it's gonna be just kind of an exploitation gross out, this one was definitely good. So I definitely recommend it. My recommendations, I know you got something else to talk about, but my recommendations so far would be Revenge, Clove Hitch, which is a much quieter film, and Escape Room, which is, I'd say, a little bit more family friendly. So besides the Sliders flick, you also caught Bird Box.
This ain't no virus or a chemical attack. It is real evil. If you see it, that takes on the form of your worst fears.
Every contact we have had with the outside has brought us death.
Is anyone there?
Hello?
We have a place. It's safe here. The fastest way to get here is by the river. The birds will warn you whenever those things are around.
We are going on the trip. Never take off your blindfold. We will make it.
You take this and you go.
I'm leaving you. Please don't take my
So this is Netflix post-apocalyptic thriller. Wow. 5 years after an ominous, unseen presence drives most of society to suicide, a mother and her 2 children make a desperate bid to reach safety. Sandra Bullock is Mallory. She's the lead character. Now, should I do this with spoilers? Do you want spoilers or no spoilers?
I want spoilers.
All right. So there's like an entity. We don't really know what it is.
Right.
And it's like infecting the world. And it basically makes somebody, if you see it, you go insane and commit suicide immediately. So everybody's fucking killing themselves, throwing themselves in front of buses, blowing their heads off, all kinds of crazy shit, stabbing themselves in the fucking neck.
Wait, is this the movie that you filmed nudes? You filmed some nude scenes for, right?
No, I'll get to that.
Are you the entity they cut? Are you the entity they cut out of the film?
I was John Malkovich's ass double.
Gross.
Anyway, blah, blah, blah. The apocalypse has hit the U.S. and it's going down the West Coast. Sandra Bullock's pregnant. She's with her sister. Car flips over. Her sister gets the disease or whatever it is, tries to kill them both. Anyway, she ends up in this neighborhood. She gets into this house full of people, of annoying people. Whatever people do see, like, they don't show it. It's right. Kind of not really understood. Obviously, if you see whatever it is, it drives you insane and you want to blow your head off.
Okay.
Or
kind of like listening to this show.
Exactly. You want to kill yourself. It's like, yeah, listening to this review right now. They have to cover the windows. They have to wear blindfolds if they go outside. The entity doesn't really seem like it can't physically hurt you. You just have to see it.
Okay.
So they have scenes in the movie where they're running from this thing and you can see the wind blowing and shit coming like it's supposed to be the thing. And but it's like, why? Because you have to see it, right? Like, that's the whole thing. So they have these scenes in the movie that don't make any sense because, once again, if you just don't look at it, then it doesn't seem like it can affect you. So, I don't know. It's very confusing why some of these scenes are there because and what they're doing doesn't seem to make sense a lot. But now, they're trying to keep people out of the house. It'd be like somebody shows up, one of the girls lets him in. John Malkovich is the asshole character. He's saying, no, don't get him out of here. He's holding a shotgun to him. He wants to kick him out of the house. Somebody smashes him in the back of the head, knocks him unconscious, and they let the person in. Of course, what happens? Malkovich is right. Because the person they let in. Now, some people, this is not explained either. Some people can see it and not kill themselves, but yet become like the thing's minions. Everybody else seems affected, but there's just a small group of people, and obviously they're trying to get them to open their eyes to see the beautiful thing, and so yeah, it's a little. So they have a couple of run-ins, bad character. They're out trying to get food. It's very kind of Walking Dead in that apocalyptic type shit.
Okay.
They get to the supermarket, get a bunch of shit. They make their way back. Like I say, they let somebody in. Shit goes sideways. People die. Eventually, it's just Mallory and this guy Tom. So I don't really know what the actor's name. He's the like the strong black male lead in the show. He's her and Sandra Bullock's characters. They're great, both great actors. They play off each other well. But just everything else is just kind of a mess. It was 2 hours long. I couldn't sit through the whole thing. About an hour into it, I put it on pause. And then I just didn't get back. It's like 2 days later, I'm like, shit, I got to watch that for the show. I really didn't give a shit about it at that point. They're intercutting, back 5 years, and most of the movie is in the past when the shit breaks out and it's all happening fresh. The other part of the movie is 5 years later when it's just Sandra Bullock and these 2 children. And they're blindfolded and they have to get into a raft go down the river to get to some sanctuary spot. She ends up going down the river and hits the rapids. The kids, they flip over. The kids end up, okay, so the kids could not have possibly ever been taught to swim because they've been locked in a house due to staying inside all the time.
Okay.
And they all get knocked off the raft in the rapids, but yet all end up making their way back to the same little side of the river. And they all survived and got out. Kids didn't drown or disappear down the rapids, you know, whatever. Okay. They all were safe. And then the thing comes after them again, and they're hauling ass. And once again, it's like, so why are you hauling ass? You just don't look at it. You have your blindfold on. So anyway, she ends up like running, tripping, falling down. The entity is just like some mass of air or something, but yet can't catch up to her, even though she trips and falls down with the kids like twice. She gets to the door of the place that was a sanctuary. It was a house for the blind. They let her in, and all is happy with the world. So in the final scene, they're in this courtyard. So it looked like there was buildings on all sides, and there was a big open kind of courtyard, a quad, inside of this place. The buildings were only about 2 stories high. The total roof is open, like it's all, you can see it's all like the trees and stuff above. So why can't the entity go over the 2-story wall and into the middle of this thing and wreak havoc? It just doesn't make any sense. It's
all right, so there's some inconsistencies in terms of the
I thought it was
demon or monster or whatever.
I don't. Yeah, but it's like I don't understand. So is this entity that's destroying the world, and it's only like, I don't know, 10 feet tall? It can't get over the. It can't just swoop over the wall and. All right. Anyway.
So you really liked it.
I thought it was such a waste of time, and it was 2 hours long. It really, there's no need it did not need to be 2 hours. Yeah. Maybe if they tightened it up a bit, I don't even know. I just, whatever.
All right.
If you have insomnia, the sleeping pills, the weed, and the booze aren't doing the trick. You throw this thing on.
Wow.
I don't know.
All right, so I think we've come to the end of our time together, sadly. Once
time again. To get happy again.
Oh, really? When does that start?
I'm sorry I ruined everything. You did so well. You had some great movies you watched.
Before we go, I just want to give a big shout out to the band that we're featuring this month, Murderock. Thank you to Freddie Ferrix for letting us spin some of your tracks from your new album, Demonia. Awesome band. Go check them out at murderock.net. Check them out on Facebook and Instagram. And otherwise, dude, I won't see you in March, which is kind of bumming me out this year. But maybe we can get together over the summer or something.
Possibly.
All right, genius. I'll talk to you when I talk to you. Everybody, thank you for listening as always. This is Johnny Thunder saying, stay scary.
The darkest web.
Hello, loyal minions. Well, it's February. The seasonal aisles and stores are awash in red and pink. Shelves are laden with candy hearts and stuffed animals. And we're less than 9 months away from Halloween 2019. 9 months. That means we have about as long to get our haunts ready as it takes to gestate a human baby. But the time will zip by faster than you ever imagine it will. So let's start talking about places to find inspiration for this year's crop of props. Now, there are tons of YouTube videos out there for how-tos, with a huge range in quality and complexity. But since I'm slowly gearing up for some fast and easy props to kick off my 2019 haunt making, I'm going to shout out just a few that I think are pretty dang simple but also super effective. First, if you're thinking of making a gory prop this year, maybe a rotting corpse, you're going to need some maggots and some guts. I found a channel that has exactly the how-tos you need. Look up monster tutorials on YouTube and check out the Make Easy Maggots video. It's super simple, fast, and easy, and results in the most realistic looking maggots I've ever seen. All you need is some liquid latex and a tiny bit of paint. Then take a look at the Realistic Guts video, also on Monster Tutorials. The basic materials required are yarn, pantyhose, latex, polyfill stuffing, and some paint. Again, the technique is easy enough for a brand spanking newbie, but really looks great. You can also find Monster Tutorials on Instagram and Facebook. How about a really simple build for a breathing or moving grave? There's a YouTube channel called Halloween How To by Saul Films that has a handful of really awesome prop tutorials. But this one is my favorite as far as simplicity and effectiveness. It uses a portable back massager and some inexpensive floral crafting items to create a really cool and spooky moving grave. If you're looking to make something slightly more complicated, but not super techy, my favorite by far is another one by Halloween How To called Animated Living and Moving Tombstone. This one's way cool. It features a sculpted face on a tombstone that moves and appears to look all around. It's such a fun and effective prop that's still simple enough for even a tech-allergic haunter, like me, to take on. That YouTube channel again is Halloween How To, with a hyphen between the how and the to. All of their videos have very clear, easy to understand instructions and great production values, so I definitely recommend you peruse their other videos as well. And check out their website at www.halloweenhow-2.com for even more cool ideas. Now, as always, I'm going to turn to the art world for some haunty inspiration. In my internet lurking, I found a very interesting website for an artist named Kevin Asher. His website is retech.org. The site has some really cool web design in itself, and it's fun to navigate and poke around in. Kevin's art uses reclaimed materials and old technology and components to make new interesting pieces that would absolutely be at home in a mad scientist, steampunk, or apocalypse-themed haunt. When he was only 7 years old, he made his first sci-fi playset using wire, clay, model parts, old broken tools, and parts from an old radio and TV set. He basically does the same process now, just in a more elevated way. Skulls and dolls mixed with wires and dials and light bulbs. I don't know if this guy's a haunter, but if he were, I bet he'd have one hell of a cool, creepy, tech-themed haunt. He's super not into social media, so really the only place you can peep his work is on his website, retech.org. If you're really into his stuff and want to be in contact with him, he does have a newsletter you can sign up for on his website. That web address is www.retech.org. Another interesting artist I'd like to mention is a French illustrator named Olivier, but he goes by 3 letters, DZO. His work has similar aesthetics to old etchings, religious engravings, and occult manuscripts. Themes featured in his art are alchemy, witchcraft, mythology, and blasphemy. Hey, that all sounds good to me. His drawings are super detailed, mostly done in black and white. To me, it's really beautiful, and looking at it closely, it's a really neat mix of disturbing and actually very pleasing. Take a look on his website, dzo-o.com, or you can find him on Instagram as DZO Olivier, and also on Facebook as DZO. I want to recommend an awesome book while I have your ear. This isn't strictly something I found online. In fact, I came to know about this book when one of my favorite sewing clients gifted it to me. Thank you, Michelle. It's called Dressed for Thrills, 100 Years of Halloween Costumes and Masquerade. It's from 2002 and is a collection of 123 full-color photographs of some absolutely fascinating masks and costume pieces. Each photo gives you a date, the materials it's made from, manufacturer info, which is often homemade, and sometimes the place where the item was found. If you're of the mindset that old-fashioned Halloween costumes are the creepiest, this book is for you. If you enjoy looking at old-timey masks, you know the kind, made from burlap, primitive, and utterly terrifying, then you really need this book. As a costumer, it's right up my alley. As a Halloween lover, it's a fascinating piece of historical record. As both a costumer and Halloween lover, it's pretty much one of the coolest books I've seen. You can get one for yourself on Amazon or eBay. There haven't been too many new worthwhile streaming shows of the horror genre lately, at least in my opinion, but there is one show that may be of interest. It's not actually new, it's from 2016, but it's new to me, so maybe it'll also be new to you as well. It's a BBC series called The Living and the Dead, streaming on Amazon. The show takes place in 1894 England. It's about a young psychologist from London, Nathan Appleby, who inherits his family's country estate after the death of his mother. He and his wife move into the old house and decide to take up the farming life. And that's when all sorts of ghostly stuff begins to ensue. It's not earth-shatteringly new or exciting, but it looks great. If you like well-shot period pieces, great costuming, and old-fashioned ghost stories, you might enjoy this one. It's only 6 episodes long, and I'm about halfway through it, so I can't say yet if it stays good for the last 3 episodes, but I did see that episode 5 takes place at Halloween time. So, before I go, it just wouldn't be right to not recommend some fun Valentine's horror mashup ideas. If you have a loved one that's also a creepy weirdo, then maybe they would enjoy having a non-traditional Valentine's card this year. If you do an Etsy search for horror Valentines, you'll find tons of cool stuff, but I'm going to point out just a few. Check out the shop called Low Key Creations. That's LOWKEECREATIONS. There's a section for Valentine's cards, and in it you'll find cards featuring many of our favorite horror characters, including such kooky couples as Gomez and Morticia, Herman and Lily, and Frankenstein's monster and the bride. Also look at the shop Yeah-O Greetings. That's YEAOHGREETINGS, and the cards featuring Freddy, Jason, and Negan. Negan's card is him holding Lucille, declaring that he's batshit crazy over you. And if you want something a little more risque, the shop called The Painted Peep Show has some naughty, creepy fun cards for you. My favorites? The one featuring Annie Wilkes from Misery is great. She's about to swing that sledgehammer and is saying, "I'm your #1 fan." Inside the card is a pair of busted ankles with the words, "God, I love you," between them. But maybe the best is the one featuring Buffalo Bill, asking that age-old question, "Would you fuck me?" Inside the card says, "I'd fuck me." And with that, I'm going to wrap it up. Don't forget, less than 9 months, y'all. I think I'll hit up my local thrift stores this weekend and see if I can't find some supplies to start on that Breathing Grave project. Have a hauntingly good Valentine's Day, and thanks for hanging around with me here in the darkest web.
Hauntcast. I am the firstborn son of Satan. He commands my thoughts. I speak his words. The book of the dead. Sons and daughters of Satan, put aside your worldly things and come to me.
your blood. Step right up and get your products over here.
The Black Market.
Calling in from the local drugstore phone booth, it's author of Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida, Mark Muncy. Hey, Mark, why are you writing about the rapper? I didn't realize that was you were into that whole hip hop scene.
Oh, that's my jam, man. That is totally my jam. So.
I'm sorry, it's Florida. I'm Florida. My bad. I am so sorry. So Eerie Florida and Freaky Florida. Wait a minute. So what's the most recent? Eerie Florida?
Freaky Florida was actually our sequel. Yeah, Eerie was our big hit, and then Freaky just came out last September. These are from History Press. If you go to any like local stores or something, or a Cracker Barrel carries these things, you'll see them. They're like local history books. Like the history of the battle of something or other, the history of this. Yeah. They're all usually written by local historians. But they've recently realized, hey, there's money in ghost stories and stuff like that. So they started doing like Haunted Georgia, Haunted this, Haunted that. And a few years ago, we approached them after Hellview Cemetery, my beloved haunt, was shut down by the city. We had been publishing ghost stories and stuff based on characters from the haunt that were based on local legends. And I approached them with trying to redo that through them, take out the fictionalized elements. We had Hellviewed up, we used to call it, like making them Tales from the Crypt style. And they were like, oh, hey, we'd love to have that. So that's where Eerie, Florida was born. We traveled 1,000 miles, never left the state, which Florida's pretty big, and found all these weird monsters, myths, legends, and told their stories.
So you become like the haunt kind of author / historian of the Florida area,
it took off. I got on all the weird radio shows like Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie and a bunch of paranormal podcasts and stuff like that. And then from there we started getting on to the even more mainstream stuff. Then we got on for Freaky Florida. I've been on NPR. I've been on some British shows. I've been on some Canadian shows. It's it's crazy. Just everybody's fascinated with creepy Florida stories.
Man, that's great. So things are going well. So this is kind of where you're putting your energy that you obviously can't put it into the haunt because it's gone. So you're putting kind of your energy. Well, look, this is probably, I don't know if it's a lot less work, but it's not as much physically straining.
It's not, you're not holding up 2x4s and, with one hand while you're standing on a broken ladder with 1 foot and, 6 people screaming at you. It's a lot less in some ways, but then you've got deadlines and, this photo didn't line up properly, so you've got to get a different version of it. So sometimes that's 6 hours away by car, so you're racing to get there before deadline to get a picture of this place, and hopefully it's not too cloudy or too rainy or whatever. So different stress levels.
Yeah, sounds like fun though. All right. So let me ask you, because we talked. When did we talk? Was that 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
About 5 years ago, the end of Hellview. I think we talked the year before we shut down. Hauntcast was one of my first things when we first started doing Hellview. I think we were still on the Halloween L list at that time.
Yeah.
And somebody recommended you guys, and that's where it all started. So.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking to Greg Wallace, and that Halloween L came up too in our conversation.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
I remember that. So I think I'm still subscribed. I don't know.
No shit. So just kind of going back to Hellview for a second, since we're on the topic of Hellview, before they shut you down, were they giving you warnings? Were there some kind of a sign that this was going to happen, or not? They just went like bam, and they just served and said you can't do this anymore?
Yeah, it's pretty much what happened. We were doing well. We got a permit every year from the city. And we had a big election. We got a new mayor and a new regime, and they were not very Halloween friendly after that. There were 5 local haunts, and none of them are back. They all closed that year. None of us got our permits allowed. And the only things that are around now are the ones that try to sneak under the radar, don't do permits, build in 2 weeks and then tear down. So we were bigger than we probably should have been, to be fair. Because we were doing, a few thousand people a weekend. It was nuts.
Yeah.
But the city loved us but then we got a new mayor and that was it. I understand one neighbor down the street had a stroke and was convinced the devil was coming for him. So he was the one who finally complained, and suddenly we couldn't get a permit anymore.
Yeah, it's a damn shame. I'm kind of expecting that to happen anytime for me too. Although this year I might just be doing the yard display, and I might just not do any type of little. Well, I don't do a walkthrough. I do a walk around.
Yeah,
sounds like a reach around, but it's not. It's something else. And the walk around, yeah, but it's kind of like a walkthrough. It's a way of doing a walkthrough and following the within the law, or it's at least like a loophole. You know what I mean? So
that's how we started. Yeah, we did the front display, and then it got we kept the old ones, so we finally just made a walkthrough of all our old displays by using a couple neighbors' yards, and that was how we started before we decided, you know what, I'm tired of having to deal with the neighbors. Can't always accommodate us and all that. So that's when we decided, we'll just build it all in my giant backyard. So, and that was, that's how we started. So
that's the problem with people don't get. I think a lot of haunters, they're like, yeah, they're trying to promote, and they've got their website, and they're trying to get all this publicity, and it's like that's the last thing you should do if you're doing a residential home yard haunt,
right?
Because what happens is social media is going to take care of that for you without you doing shit.
We're still getting tons of visitors on Halloween, and people come by the weekend before Halloween. We just got a small display up now. We do a lot of atmosphere projections and just set up a few things, but people still come by going, oh, what, you're not doing the haunt this year? I'm like, we haven't done it in 4 years, but everybody still sees the old Facebook posts and the old.
By the way,
memories.
Make sure you call the mayor's office and thank him.
Oh yeah. Call that new mayor every year. We applied again this year. I haven't heard back yet. So, but he's still in power. So I doubt we're going anywhere for a couple of years.
You basically have to wait for him to get ousted, and then there may be a chance of it coming back.
Yeah, I think this guy wants to be senator or governor at some point. So I think we're a stepping stone.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's going to be here long anyway.
A lot of those politicians are,
Yeah.
If I was ever to do that, I would just be happy taking my little small gig. If you can probably ride it out, for years,
To be fair, people like you and I have too many skeletons in our closet that would keep us from going above city level politics.
Yeah, of course, I was just, I'm talking figuratively, of course.
Yeah, figuratively.
There's no way, dude. Are you kidding me? I got 2 OUIs. There's no way I could run for any office without getting destroyed.
I might have some ex-girlfriend from high school show up going, oh God,
plenty of skeletons in the closet. And I'm not talking about Scully.
Like I said, that was it. When I got on Coast to Coast AM, which is the huge with the tinfoil hat crowd. Suddenly I got all these calls and letters the next day from people I hadn't seen in 20, 30 years going, oh man, I didn't know you wrote books. I said, I wrote back then. Just nobody cared.
You weren't writing Harry Potter?
No, I didn't know. Who knew? Yeah, no, but the stories we write now, they're cool. I mean, we find some really crazy places. This is stuff that could inspire a haunt big time. I got to say, it reminds me so much of Revenant's Theater of the Mind stuff, where you go out and you find real stories to incorporate into things. We've got so much information now, we could build a million haunts on some of this stuff.
Okay. Now, we want to encourage people to buy the books, of course, right?
Yes.
So we're going to do all of the plugging of where they can buy that in a minute. But give us some kind of really cool tidbit something from the book that was maybe one of your favorite stories. You don't have to go and give it all away, but give us a taste of one of the really juicy legends or lores from Florida.
Okay, yeah, great. Yeah, we've got we cover everything from the UFOs at Gulf Breeze up in the Panhandle down to Robert the Doll down in Key West. Everybody knows those. But we tried to hit some of the more obscure stuff, some crazy stuff. We got Pinky the Sea Monster, got the Skunk Apes, all the classics. But then we found some odd stuff that really stood out to us. One of my favorites is the Grave of Wickedemus. I love that name. How's that for a name? Wickedemus. It's supposedly the grave site of a witch, and it was a little girl who had a pet demon, and they terrorized this town. They controlled the town, and a witch finder found them. This is like a Lost Colony style, predates Roanoke, a French settlement up in North Florida on Amelia Island. It's right on the Georgia border, and there's no records of it, all this, but there's a gravestone in this old abandoned, creepy walkway. It was like an old, part of a nature park that doesn't exist. And it's a crazy place. It was just so cool. And the story behind it was just, crazy. And it has the whole urban legend. Go there on 3 nights and you'll gain power, or think about the girl while you're there and she'll grant you a wish and the demon will rise. Crazy stuff. And this stuff goes all the way back to the 50s. So it's like, okay, so how long has this really been there? And that's the kind of stuff we explored and learned about. And now that whole area is being developed and it's going to be like a housing project over it. So, what's it going to be now? It's crazy stuff.
Is there a difference in the types of stories that you're covering in Freaky Florida? More bizarre, weird stuff versus just kind of spooky, scary legend type stuff? You
got it exactly. Yeah, Eerie Florida.
See, I'm not so dumb.
No, I love that when you and Johnny reviewed it real quick on an episode not too long ago. Thank you guys for doing that. But it was, Eerie was the one we started with, which was, we wanted spooky, we wanted creepy. While we were investigating some of the places, we found out, there's no ghosts, there's no legends, it's all bogus. We debunked it. But it was still a really cool place, a place like Solomon's Castle, which this guy built this castle in a swamp in Florida entirely out of recycled materials. It's amazing. And then, the Wonder House, which is another old 1930s tourist attraction that's crazy inventions and all that. And the couple who bought it thought it was haunted. They bought it because they were going to make it into a haunted house. And now they found out, it's not haunted, but it's still cool as heck. So, so we got to include those in Freaky. We still have our creepy stuff, because that's what our bread and butter. But we also had, and then we uncovered some other stuff while we were looking for Eerie. People are like, this one, but do you know about the Devil's Tree down in Port St. Lucie? And I'm like, I knew about it, but I didn't think it was real. And then we found out, it is real and tied to a serial killer and all this other crazy stuff. So it's just too much fun. And now we've got a 3rd book in the works. Should be out in September.
Excellent. What's the name of that?
I'm not allowed to say just yet because they have to make sure it clears copyright.
Come on!
I can tell you it fits Eerie and Freaky. And if you're an old EC Comics fan, you can probably figure it out.
Something Florida.
Right.
Plug away. Where can people go right now and get their hands? By the way, did you do the audiobook?
Well, they haven't. Our publisher has never done audiobooks, History Press, but because we've sold so many and because we have such a demand for it, that might be some things that we're working on this year. This might be their first ever audiobook.
So where can people pick these up?
Okay, EerieFlorida.com is our home site. You can follow us on all the social medias and stuff, see wherever we're doing appearances and stuff. We do appearances at Universal Studios now, Islands of Adventure. We've done a lot of the local cons and stuff. But, if you don't want to wait for that, there's, you can get it online at any of your usual retailers, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that. We're available wherever fine books are sold. Your local retailer can order it usually. If you go to Eerie, Florida, there's a link to a local bookstore here in St. Pete that sells our book, and they'll sign it, and we'll sign it, and they'll ship it out to you.
So guys, go grab a copy, peruse all the freaky and eerie shit that's going on in Florida.
Yeah, feel free to make it into a haunt. We'd appreciate it. Just send us a link.
All right, Mark.
Thanks, Chris. We'll see you next time.
All right, later.
By the pricking of my thumbs.
Welcome, Haunters. I'm your host, Ed Gannon, professional haunter, Something Wicked Productions, also Wicked Amusements. And in this episode of Something Wicked, we'll talk about the scary. If I had a dime for every time I've been talking to a potential guest or standing in front of a haunt and I hear the question, is it scary in there? Yeah, but is it really scary? I'd have a lot of dimes. The thing is, the answer to that question is literally as diverse as the individual who asks it. It's so subjective. Of course, there are broad strokes that most people are afraid of, and we can cover a good portion of those in our haunts and do it well. But every person has a secret fear, beyond the mainstream. Some fears overlap, sure, but there is one very personal thing that can set even the most stalwart guest on edge. We usually will never know what that personal trigger is, and that's okay. Sometimes the guest doesn't really have words for it either, but you can see it in their eyes sometimes. If you've been haunting for a while in front of guests, you have seen it. Someone comes up around a corner and they get that look. You haven't done anything different than you've done for previous guests, and yet something has set them off. Maybe it's a word you said or they heard. Maybe music or a sound. Maybe it's the atmosphere or the theme of the environment. Or maybe it's something they thought they saw in the dark that isn't even there. But now they are spooked. And for a short time, seconds, you have them.
I have you now.
To understand that a little better, let's look at the science of fear. Fear is an important primitive response designed to keep us safe. Our own versions of Spidey sense. It tells you there's something you need to pay attention to right now. That attention triggers several responses and has actual physical ramifications. The physical triggers are easy for us to see and feel. Pupils dilate, allowing us to see more clearly in low light. You start to sweat, which is different from regular sweat and carries hormones that may help alertness. You can actually smell fear on someone.
You know bees and dogs can smell fear.
Heart rate increases and blood pressure increases, redirecting blood away from intestines and towards skeletal muscles, getting them ready to fight or flight. Breathing deepens, and your breath rate increases to bring more oxygen to muscles. Extreme conditions may cause the bladder to let go, getting ready to flee so it won't slow you down. Have you ever had to run when you really had to pee? You get the idea.
Shut up! I didn't pee my pants!
Another reaction may be to freeze in place with fear. A leftover from when we were prey and standing still made us harder to see. Literally, like a deer in the headlights. The release of neurochemicals and hormones causes changes for running or fighting. When stress activates the amygdala, part of your brain, it temporarily overrides conscious thought so that the body can divert all of its energy to facing the threat, whatever that may be. What makes humans' responses different to fear, different from other animals, is that people can process their fear and tamp it down once they consciously understand that they are not really in danger.
Danger, Will Robinson, danger.
This is where the fun comes in while being frightened. You can't enjoy it unless somewhere deep down you know you're actually safe, and this is an entertainment. Or is it?
Well, that's a relief.
This fun/relief response they're enjoying is the chemical aftermath that follows a rush of fear, a feeling that can be euphoric. Dr. Catherine Brownlow, chief of the Division of Neurobehavioral Health at the Ohio State University Wexner Medical Center, says, once the fight or flight signals cease, the brain releases neurotransmitters and hormones that mediate what we call the rest and digest system. The heart rate is coming down, the breathing is slowing, goosebumps are relaxing, there's a sense of internal cognitive relief in the body, and that feels good. And in my opinion, this is the sign of the perfect scare. Initial scare response, followed by relaxing the shoulders, breathing slows, then they smile or laugh. Perfect. Like my buddy Alan Hopp says, and I've been saying this as well for years, the haunted house industry provides a public service. A good old-fashioned scare can make some of the everyday fears we face seem less terrifying. It gives people perspective. If you're anxious about talking to your boss about getting a raise and then you get the crap scared out of you, talking to your boss is no longer a big deal. You can't scream about your kids or taxes at home or work, but you can come to us, scream your head off, and feel better. Now that you understand how that works, here's the scary part. Look for that look, that trigger. You can see it in body language, in their eyes, or what a guest says, or more importantly, what they avoid. Remember, SDAER. Search for it, detect it, analyze it, exploit it, repeat. Sure, it's clunky, and you can probably come up with a better acronym yourself, but you get the idea. So now you know you need a live interaction with guests to get the response that creates good reviews and memories, and you know why. This theory actually escapes many haunters.
Can you get it?
Now, the scary brain that overrides the logical, this is fake brain usually is triggered by basic stuff like avoidance of being eaten or the threat of being physically hurt. I think most attractions focus on these, and they work. But there is another half to this that is even stronger. We all know how to chase someone with a chainsaw, which threatens physical damage and pain. But how do you tap into the greater fear of taking someone's self-control away? Being put in a position where you have no control over your environment or over what happens to you is secretly the greatest fear modern people have. Tap into that, and you have them.
Bro, just check in. They don't check out.
Good example is the debate over insane asylum haunts and whether they are not socially acceptable these days. Firstly, this is an attraction that is designed to scare people, push limits, and bring guests to a place of feeling unsafe, yet being safe. Like peeking through a window to a world you would not want to live in that makes you grateful for what you have. Secondly, the theme of insane asylum gone wrong in itself is not to be blamed, nor is it insensitive to people who are actually mentally ill. That theme plays on the fear of having all your rights taken away and others doing whatever they want to you while you can do nothing about it. That is the scary part of an asylum haunt. If a person is suffering from mental illness, they should relate to it on a personal level from their own perspective and not link it to the public's intolerance about their condition. Mental health is significant and needs to be addressed and taken seriously. None of us are saying anything different. That is not a haunted house, no more than fear of how the public sees your occupation or income or where you live. Should guests be butthurt because the Victorian haunted house they are traversing looks like a rundown apartment they lived in once? No, that would be silly, right? Exactly. The Classum Arkham Asylum mythos is taken from a real place, which is terrifying. And it wasn't the only one. Danvers State Hospital in Danvers, Massachusetts was the setting of actual horrors and crimes against humanity. Experimental treatments, rampant criminal neglect, torture, understaffed with inadequate supervision, underbudgeted, experimental surgeries, not to mention rape and prostitution out on its patients. All the horrible things you would never want to happen to someone happened there for real. Patients had no control, no appeal like they do today. You were an item to collect a check either from the government or from a private account. Sure, some doctors tried to cure and help, but there were no real methods then. In Victorian times, when Danvers and other institutions were created, a husband could commit his wife to an asylum due to the effects of menopause, for example. She would have no say in the matter, just shipped off until he couldn't pay anymore.
Whoa, stop right there.
Those days are gone, but the horror of that is not forgotten. And these are the fears we prey on when you see an asylum haunt or a prison haunt. You and I are terrified at a subconscious level to be manipulated in such a way and will run or fight to avoid it.
Run as fast as you can. I'm the future bringer!
Now, the real scary part about these and many themes is at the heart of what fear is. Having to watch while things are done to and around you with no power to control or change it. Like alien abduction stories, for example. This is another reason why clowns are such a phobia. Their faces look smiley and happy, but you have no idea what is going on behind that smile. And that camouflage is something that our animal brain says, do not believe it. That could be danger. Hence, it's scary. All you need to do is create an environment where the guest may not have that control or feel like they have that control, and then you've got them. But be sure to let them off the hook, so to speak, before they leave, or the illusion and release of endorphins doesn't happen. That relief is what brings the smiles, the shared stories of, did you see that? And the social media hits that have become an important part of our business. Scare them, freak them out, then let them laugh. Success.
Yeah, it was like somebody literally wrote down my worst nightmare and then charged me $32 to see it.
Well, look at the time. Okay, we'll wrap up this segment for now. In future episodes, we'll talk about more aspects of professional haunting, their methods, philosophies, how-tos, and so much more. But I see our moments here are up, and so until the next time, be safe. This is Ed Gannon, www.somethingwickedproductions.com, saying, have a wicked day. Scary.
You're right.
Interviews with haunting gurus.
He puts the man in manor. It's the master hoarder of Restless Souls Manor. Greg Packard. Hey, Greg, what's going on?
Hey, Chris. What an honor.
Fancy seeing you here.
All right.
Or hearing you here.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, so congrats on being featured in the Epic Home Haunts movie. That was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. I got to say, Josh and Katie are amazing people, and I think they've done the haunt community really well on this time. So
yeah, there's been numerous movies that have come out, and they haven't really, as I said before, painted us in the best or shown us in the best light. I think Josh did a great job of really kind of, showing the passion and the heart and the love without showing, making us look like absolute lunatics, which is probably more accurate. But, for your average
definitely
normie
something
out
wrong
there.
with all of us, right? There's something wrong with all of us, But
each and every one.
But yeah, I think at the end of the day, some of the more recent, pieces that have come out, they make haunters look like broken people. And I just think most of us are not that kind of broken. You know what I mean? I mean, we all got our little demons, but not to the depth that we've been portrayed.
Yeah, it just I look at some of them and I say, you know what? You're not really capturing it. You're really kind of missing it. I think it's almost like they're coming in with that preconceived notion, so they're shooting it and they're trying to capture it that way. But yeah, I mean, look, of course we all have some problems. Some people more than others. as I'm pointing to myself with my two thumbs. But we do it. We love it. We have fun with it. It's just a artistic and creative outlet, and that's really what it comes down to. I think we are. Some people. Some people paint. Some people, do YouTube videos. Some people do this, some do that. This is what we do.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely a huge creative side to it. I mean, I know I myself have always been a creative person, as far back as I can remember. I have absolutely no visual artistic skill whatsoever. But things like, whether it was my original kind of career that I'd hoped to get was to become an architect. And so I can't tell you how many hours I spent at the bar in the kitchen at my parents' house with the paper taped down to the bar and, a T-square and pencil and eraser and drawing pictures of houses and stuff, and then playing music. I learned to play music, play a couple musical instruments as a kid and into my teens, and garage band stuff, and then later in life getting into cooking, again, which I think has another very creative sort of thing, and haunting's just kind of been the wave of the last decade, anyways, of my life.
Where does your love of Halloween derive? Like, can you remember your earliest, outside of just trick-or-treating, beyond that?
Yeah, I can actually. I have a pivotal moment in my Halloween life. When I was a kid, I can remember. Now, those of us who are old enough to remember Christmas lights, when they were bulbs that screwed into a string of wires, the kind of big C7 or C9 Christmas light strings. My dad worked in the aerospace industry, and one day he came home with a sack full of these cardboard tubes, and they were the spindles that wire came on that they were using in the factory to make parts for radars. And so he had this idea, and anybody who's been on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney knows that there's that last piece as you're being hauled up the hill before Johnny Depp invaded it. There was this little scene with little pairs of eyes that were blinking at you. And so my dad wanted to recreate that for Halloween. And so I remember sitting in the garage with my dad with an X-Acto knife and cutting eyes into the side of these cardboard tubes. That after we did that, then we spray painted them black and put a piece of black cardboard on top, and then on Halloween we went and stuffed these things in the bushes and on top of a string of those Christmas lights. And of course, back in the day, those bulbs were individually blinking bulbs. So it was kind of this first moment where there was something for Halloween that wasn't a store-bought thing.
Yeah, something you made. Funny little story about those Christmas lights, as we're probably around the same age, I'm guessing. I grew up in the inner city, and I was a punk. I was a complete wise ass. I know. It's a stretch, right? And
Hard to believe.
I've come so far. A full circle or something. I don't know. So me and a couple of my friends were always out looking for mischief. And one of the things we used to do around, in December is we would go around and we would unscrew and steal people's bulbs, and we would have bulb fights, because when those things, would pop, they would, you get that popping sound when they would hit the ground. So we would pelt each other with them, or pelt cars with them. We were bad boys. We were bad boys.
Yeah. I guess I was just a wannabe in that. But yeah, we actually did that. I don't think there was a house on the street that had Christmas lights that were lower than 7 feet on the ground, because that's about as high as one of your buddies could lift you up, give you a leg up to reach them. And so, by Christmas time, I think every house had all the lights stripped that were within reach anyways.
Yeah.
And the street was just littered with glass, which, in retrospect, I think about the summers, because the summers, as a kid, I remember going barefoot from the time we got out of school to the time I had to go back, and running in those streets. And I'm thinking, there was probably a lot of glass in the streets. I never really thought about it from the Christmas light extravaganza.
Yeah, left over from Christmas. So where did Restless Souls come from? I mean, you've kind of gone through a progression like we all do. So when did that kind of begin? Or was it not named Restless Souls prior to you starting the haunt? And then you kind of, giving it a name and a backstory? How did that all come about?
So I started probably about a decade ago, getting, about the time that Hauntcast kicked off, getting extremely interested in doing something. And my original goal was to just have a great yard display. And of course, I listened to the podcast a lot. I was on Haunt Forum and Halloween Forum all the time, right? Because that's what we did then. Those were our sources. And I just started to collect a lot of information. And I listened to people, and they said, your haunt should have a name. So at some point, I said, I'm going to get a name. So I didn't get a name until later because I didn't have the finances to do something crazy like buy a domain, So I waited until I had some money to do that, and then I looked for a name. And I purposely picked a name because I wanted to have the traditional, Victorian haunted house kind of theme to work with. And then, of course, by listening to people like Rev and stuff on Hauntcast and other haunters and, of course, reading a lot, I found that you should have a story for your haunt and, it would help you out. And so we didn't have a story for the haunt until the first year we did a walkthrough. So the first year we did a walkthrough, I sat down and I wrote essentially a 2-page story. And that was just purely because I knew it would help us decide what kinds of things we needed to have for the walkthrough. I think when you don't have that kind of anchor, you just see something and you say, well, that's a really cool prop. I'm going to grab it, or I'm going to build that because it's really cool. But then, you kind of get in that situation where you have, time and money, right? And you need to funnel that to help you get a good show. So we did the story, and I created a story that had a lot of what I'll call hooks in it. So the basic story is about the original settlers of our city, which is called Palmdale, that came from the Midwest. And I just went to the Palmdale website and looked at the history of Palmdale kind of thing and Wikipedia and such, and just went to there and said, okay, this is what the history is. And I just kind of then just created this embellished, pseudo history about a family that came from the Midwest during the middle of the 1800s when everybody was coming to California, and they settled here, and what happened to them after they settled here. And that there were all these other hooks in it, that they were followed by a coven of witches that used witchcraft to keep hidden, and all these other things. And so then what we do with the story is every year we approach that core story with those hooks. So we try to come at it from a different direction, still with the idea that the manor itself magically appears in the fall every year. It just reappears magically, and then there's something about the story.
Yeah, we probably had the same type of evolution because we started about the same time. I think I've been doing the Village Mire, not with that name, for probably about 10 or 11 years. And then after a couple of years, I think I listened to it was Revenant's Theater of the Mind talking about backstory. And that was where I really said, okay, you know what? I really need a name and I really need a backstory. So let's try to figure out what I can do. Now, the name wasn't really part of the backstory. It was... At first, I just came up with the name. Then I kind of developed the backstory maybe the year after. So I think it was a couple of years of me doing, which I wouldn't call it a haunt. It was, some tombstones out front, a couple of small props, and, maybe a pneumatic pop-up. I started trying to figure out pneumatics and make some of my own mechanisms and stuff. And then after having the Village Mire, coming up with that name because I live in the captain's village, and I was trying to find something else that wasn't a hollow. I've found people use the word hollow in their haunts, and I love that. There was like a Grim Hollow haunt, and somebody else had a hollow, and I really dug that, but I wanted to have a very unique, different name. I was looking for something like it was like a bog, or, and then I just pulled up the thesaurus, and mire was another word for like a bog or wetland area. And then, boom, there was the Village Mire. I just like the name Village because it sounds old. Anyway, this isn't about me. This is about you. What am I doing? I'm going off. I do this all the time with people, and I start going off on a tangent. All right, so you basically developed this backstory, kind of pulled out from the history of Palmdale. But roughly, where is Palmdale in California? What are you close to?
We're about 70 miles northeast of downtown LA.
Okay.
So we're in the high desert where we actually have seasons here. For those people who would be shocked to hear this, occasionally we get a dusting of snow in the winter. Most people think of Palmdale because it's in the high desert. They think of heat in the summer. We do have that too. But really it's only a couple of months where it's quite hot. For instance, this morning I think it was 36 degrees when I left for work this morning. So it's not hot year round. A lot of people think it's in the desert. It must be hot. That's not true.
So I wanted to talk to you about the overall haunt because I was watching some videos with you and the Hollywood Haunter. I'm sorry, what's his name? I forgot.
That's Chris.
Oh, sorry,
Chris Leslie.
Your haunt looks absolutely gigantic in its scope, especially considering what I do. I basically set up a little tiny thing in my driveway. You were what now? Building this off the front of your house, the side of your house, and utilizing your garage? Is that basically how you do it?
So we have a 3-car garage that no cars live in because I'm a haunter. And then, this year...
You park down the street?
Pretty much. So this year we bumped the facade out 5 feet from the front of the garage. So it's the 3-car garage, that 5-foot space across the front of it. And then out the back of the garage, there's a door on the back side of the garage that goes into the backyard. So there's a patio and side yard kind of piece to the house. Now, mind you, this is a Southern California tract home. Okay, this is not some even typical U.S. sized lot, right? Like a lot of places have like a half-acre sized lot, right? That's not us. We are not that big. So I think what makes people think that the haunt is so big is because we try to have the spaces be as real as possible size-wise. So, for instance, when you went into the operating room scene, if you saw that on the videos, that room is 12 by 16.
Wow.
Okay, so it's big. It's not a tiny little space. I think that is where a lot of home haunts go wrong. Is they try to put as many rooms in as they can, and they make things small. And I think people's minds don't accept the space as real. So we try to make all of our rooms be very logically sized. So if it were to be a dining room, it would be the size of a typical dining room. If it were a bedroom, it should be like a bedroom, not just, you've got this chopped down version of a bed, that's maybe 4 feet long and, 2 feet wide, and you got to turn sideways to get past that kind of a thing. No, we put in something the size of a full twin size bed in the space, and then a dresser and, a trunk. And so it's got to be big enough that you can put all that stuff in there and still walk through it.
I've never done anything on that scale, so I can't really compare. But and I haven't really gone through many actual walk through other people's home haunts because I'm doing mine. But yeah, you go through, just any haunt, even though the rooms might be a little bit scaled down, they're still realistic size rooms. So, and I guess everything is about the environment. If it feels real, people can't put their finger on it exactly. They just know when something's not right. And it doesn't really ring true to them, where if it's right or close enough, they'll just believe it and fall into the scene. Now, you have the overarching theme, but you also kind of change things up within that. Do you do that every year?
So what we do is I basically write an addendum story for every year. Okay. So, like last year's story actually built upon, it was triggered by our Q line spiel from the year before. So the previous year we used the manor in current time, not the 2018 show, the 2017 show, which we were which was in the documentary partially. You would have come to the manor, you would have been greeted by a paranormal investigator, and you would have been given a ghost detector, and you were going to be set on a ghost hunt throughout the house. But in the spiel, you would have been told that the manor had been many things in its life. Of course, it had been a house because that's what it was originally, but it also had been an orphanage, and it also had been a hotel, and it also at one point had been a mortuary. But it also had been a surgical hospital where there was a doctor that did, some really sketchy surgery. And so this past year, the 2018 show, was the year that it was the surgical hospital. So we took that cue from the previous year's Q line spiel and turned it into a whole. There's a crazy doctor doing crazy operations on people, and then we said, okay, well, we need some way to get people back to the time, because it was 1899. We wanted to make this experience in 1899, so we built a time machine, and we told them, you're going to go on a time machine journey back to the time of the dinosaurs. So our Q line, everything in our Q line was all based on somebody going on a time travel trip to go see dinosaurs. And then they got in the time machine, which of course malfunctioned, because time machine in a haunted house can't possibly, work, right? So once it malfunctioned, it dumped you off in 1899 at Dr. Hackerman's Surgical Hospital, and off you went. And then if you paid real close attention, you would have noticed that all the actors as you went through were animal-human hybrids, kind of cued off of the Island of Dr. Moreau kind of concept. So we kind of did this mashup between the books The Time Machine and The Island of Dr. Moreau, all of it based upon one sentence in the Q line spiel from the previous year. All of it still centered around, though, the manor. So the core of it was still the manor.
Funny is my daughter gave me a big hardcovered H.G. Wells compilation book, or whatever you call it.
Sure.
And that's what I'm currently reading right now, is The Time Machine. So I broke it open.
Pictures, Chris?
Dove right in, and I know it's a wicked shocker. I actually can read sometimes when I put my mind to it.
Just 10 years of listening, I can't help myself.
I can hear Johnny Thunder already, saying,
Yes,
all right,
exactly.
Genius. I try to think, but nothing happens. So when people are in the queue line, when they come to the front, it's about ready for their turn to enter the manor. What do you have? You have like a video that's produced that is kind of their queue line, kind of sets up the haunt, and then from that point they head in.
That was this year we did that. My brother, who's one of my partners, along with my wife and a few of our friends, produced a fantastic video that was all about the time travel. So it was Packard Temporal Travel, which was a travel agency that was going to take you on. So it basically had all this great dinosaur footage. I don't ask him where he got it. I'm quite sure he didn't go film dinosaurs himself. But so he created this great of work, and then that was playing in the queue line right at the holding point where people, just before they came up, and then once they came up, they got a quick spiel on you're going to go visit the dinosaurs and all sorts of things, and it really reinforced that because I was working the queue line, really reinforced that whole piece for them, and then sent them in, and they met their time captain, and she took them, put them in the time machine, and took them on their voyage, and then from that point on, it was self-guided from there.
In what year did it drop them back into?
1899.
Okay, 1899. Did he also produce that for you? That was great. I really loved.
Yeah,
that's.
Yeah, he did. He did that too, and then of course I used a prop controller based on the ubiquitous button banger to trigger the video. We basically had a start button that the time captain would fire the thing up. So she'd hit the start button, and it would fire off a video player that would start the video, and then of course the lighting would change, and we had a fog machine hooked up in there so that once the time machine broke down, one of the sound effects on the video was obviously the machine breaking. You could hear a large clunk and bang, and then the fog machine would go off. And originally I had a couple of electronic firecrackers in some of that steampunkish piping that were going off. Unfortunately, I did not read all the specs on those, and I fried my relay board with those. So unfortunately, for a good bit of the Halloween show, that part was not functional. That just, of course, we learn lessons every year.
That we do.
The lesson this year, read all you can about everything you're doing with electronic things.
So you get that magic blue smoke.
Yeah, exactly.
Going way back in time, I remember when Steve-O mentioned the magic blue smoke.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to us. We got some blue smoke on our solid-state relay boards because they were only 2-amp boards, and I didn't realize that. I thought they were more just because the beefiness of them. I didn't even pay attention to the spec. So, and unfortunately, those electronic firecrackers, in case nobody knows, they're 2 amps each. And, the rest is history, so to speak.
Yeah. I can even do the math there. I can even figure that one out.
Exactly.
And I was to understand there'd be no math,
Right.
I don't know where that came from. I always remember that as a line, and I say it all the time, and I don't. It was like on an SNL skit or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So now this year, did you give them a little scanner, or was that in 2017? Do you give them something to walk through with?
That was a 2017 show. My brother and I came up with this idea. We built these little ghost detectors, and they had an Arduino Nano on the inside with an infrared detector, and then also a little what they call haptic feedback. Of course, you work on mobile devices, so you know that it's basically a little vibrating thing, just like your phone would have on vibrate. Yeah. So inside this little box, there was a microcontroller looking. It was programmed to look for a particular infrared code, just the same kind of a thing like your TV remote would use, right? And when it got that code, it would react. And so it would strobe some LEDs on the front of the box, kind of sweep them up and down, and then it would turn the vibrator on a few times. And so then when it didn't detect that code, it had like an ambient mode where just like 1 or 2 of the LEDs were just kind of flickering a little bit like I'm on, but not detecting anything. And then throughout the haunt, we placed these transmitters that also had an Arduino Nano in them that were transmitting the codes, and they were pointing straight down from the ceiling, so they had a pretty tight focus. So as somebody walked underneath the cone of infrared code, the detector would pick it up and go off. So sometimes we put those in places where we had scares, and sometimes we put them in places where there was no scare. And we told people when we gave it to them and sent them on their self-guided tour of the haunt that, we're not sure how well they work, but, go ahead and give it a go. And it was one of the greatest things ever, because people were just mesmerized because they kept looking at those lights, expecting something to happen, and sometimes the thing would go off and there was a scare, and other times, then they're primed, right? They're thinking, okay, if it goes off again, I'm going to get scared, and then they maybe didn't get scared the second time, but and then maybe they got a scare where there were no lights, you know what I mean, kind of a thing. So it was a great distraction.
Damn, that is pretty pro-grade high-tech shit. I know it's not that high grade, you know what I mean? Like it seems fairly simple enough, but that's like pro haunt quality kind of entertainment that you're providing there, Mr. Packard.
Well, that's the key, right? We're there to entertain people, really. It goes back to that whole concept. I do, of course, we do like to scare people. It's a haunt, right? But you can't scare everybody, right? So if you can't scare them, entertain them. And I think I've heard that only 1,000 times by people, who are much wiser than I in the industry on Hauntcast, right? Yeah. So I've just said, okay, that's the way we're going to handle it. I think it's one of the coolest things we've done. That particular gag was fantastic.
Shame you only used it 1 year. You'll have to bring that back again in some incarnation or something, I guess.
Well, this year, the manor is going to be the hotel that was spoken about, and I'm trying to come up with a gag using RFID to unlock doors. Not quite, something escape room-ish, but kind of that idea of you go into a room and the door closes behind you and it doesn't open. And in order to get out, you've got to use a key. So what I'm hoping to do is basically issue people keys when they go into the haunt, and use those keys with RFID to, and they get the key close enough to the lock that the lock will open. So
I dig it. It's great. Do you have a video, a how-to on how you put those together?
No, but I probably will produce one at some point. There's been some interest in it. More than one person has said, "Wow, that's really freaking amazing."
Well, after this show drops, your inbox is going to be full with the 5 people listening all requesting that tutorial.
Yeah. So let me just say that there's possibility of. I have a YouTube channel, by the way. There's a few things on there, but there will probably be a new YouTube channel. I'm just going to say this. I have a couple haunt buddies, and we're talking about maybe putting some content together on a regular basis. So it would probably land there, because that would be a good place for it.
Well, keep us up to date. Drop me the info when you have it, and I'll pollute it around the interwebs, and I'll try to get it out there. You had one thing I noticed in your haunt, in one of the hallways or rooms. I think it was in a hallway. You had a framed degree from Dr. H. Ackerman. Now, is that just a play on words for Hackerman, or is that a tribute to Uncle Forey?
So here's the story. It's kind of funny, so to speak. But remember that original 2-page treatment that I did for the haunt. The original family that came from the Midwest, their name was Ackerman, which I believe, if I remember, if my memory is right, it's a little dusty. It's been a few years. I think it means farmer in German, or some permutation thereof. So the Ackerman family came here to start a farm, and so was looking for a name for the doctor. I just figured, well, of course, it's just one of the descendants. It's one of the Ackermans. It's his house, anyways, right? So why not? And well, then I have this name Ackerman, and I'm thinking, well, it's almost a little too cheesy to turn it to Hackerman, right? But you kind of have to do it, right? I mean,
nothing is ever too cheesy in the haunt game. I don't think. I just assumed it was from Forrest J. Ackerman, from Uncle Forry from the old famous Monster Filmland magazine. So I was Uncle Forry. Oh my God, I love that. That is because I have a tombstone with an epitaph of his in my front yard. But that's cool.
Yeah, no, this is purely based upon the family lore, so to speak. I'm not sure how many people saw that. Because the character we had in that room was very imposing, and I think a lot of people were probably looking at that character and not necessarily paying attention to the
Haunt geeks like myself. When I walk into a room, I'm like looking and reading everything. That's like, if I could read it, I'm like trying to, if I see things, I'm always like poking and looking at things. So I'm an easy mark for a scare actor. But yeah, most people are not. They go into a room and they're just like, all right, where's the scare actor? Like, where's the creepy guy? And they're not looking at, oh, hey, wow, this is kind of cool. It says Ackerman. Remember out front? They said it was the Ackerman family. Who's not doing that?
Yeah, and there's, of course, if anybody, because we also have a yard display, because that's how I started, right? So I still have all this stuff from the yard display, and we put it out. So there's a graveyard in front of the manor, in the front yard, and if you read the tombstones, of course, the Ackerman family is all out there. So, because, again, like I said, I just tried to keep building upon that story, just continue the lore and make it deeper and deeper. So they're out there in the graveyard, the Ackermans.
What happens? How many scare zones or scare actors do you have throughout? What do you have? 11 rooms?
We did have 11 this year, which I've always felt it seems small, so to speak. It's funny, you talk about how it feels so spacious. It feels small to me. But yeah, we had 11 rooms, and I think we had probably about 8 actors. So not every room has an actor. But when I say rooms, some of those rooms are passageways between rooms or something like that. So they're not. There wouldn't be any place for an actor, so to speak, in a few of these places, and that's okay. Doesn't mean that people going through don't, know that, right? I mean, they don't know where somebody can come from. As a matter of fact, it's funny you were talking about how you read things. I think most people look at the floor. I think we should spend a lot more time decorating the floor because most people are looking down, down by their feet. Is what I noticed.
It's because of their shame. They're ashamed of themselves.
Something, I'm not sure.
I'm going to pick out just a couple of props that really caught my eye that I just really liked. But the hospital beds, just made out of the PVC piping, just looked so, even in the daytime, they looked really authentic.
I got to tell you, it was a little stroke of genius I had there. I don't know when I came up with that exactly. I was looking, I spend a lot of time just, flipping through stuff on Pinterest, or what have you, just looking at pictures of stuff, and as well as, of course, on Facebook, on Haunters Hangout, and different places. And I saw a picture of somebody had done something with some PVC, and I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been a fence, but they heated the PVC and bent it and made it look a little twisty and things. And I think it just inspired me to kind of go, PVC, I got to think about PVC. Now, I knew I was going to do the hospital theme. And I've actually been watching Craigslist like a hawk. Well, of course, once you get to the stage where you're doing walkthroughs, you kind of have to do that. I've been watching Craigslist like a hawk. And I knew I needed, 2 or 3 beds that matched. And we're not as lucky on the in Southern California, say, as you might be up, in the northeastern part of the country, simply because that part of the country is so much older, and there's a lot of stuff that can be had for little or no cost that's old. You know what I mean? Like here, everything is pretty much post-World War II. Like, it's all post-World War II and forward here. So yeah, if you want something from the 70s, you probably can find it. But, if you're looking for something that looks like it is older than that, it's a tough score here. So I just been watching. And then I was thinking about what those institutional kinds of beds look like. And it just kind of was like, I saw that bed PVC and I said, wait a minute, maybe I could just use some large PVC and make a frame and find some smaller, which is what I did. I found some real small PVC. It was actually PEX tubing, I think, actually, are the smaller pieces. And I said, I think I could probably do this. And so I just bought the pieces and did it and just glued it all up. Cut them.
So did you
had a friend help me with that? Of course,
so
I didn't do it all myself.
You did heat and bend to get the curvature for the.
I didn't have.
No,
I didn't have to because their standard PVC. If you go to the electrical section, not the plumbing section, to get that larger PVC like I did, you'll see that they're prefabricated 90-degree elbows. And that's what I did. I just bought these prefabricated 90-degree elbows. It's cut and glue and drill some holes.
Now, was that the gray stuff? The gray PVC that you're using? Yeah. It's funny because I know that exists, but I always just gravitate to the plumbing aisle and go for the white because that usually does the job for what I'm looking for. But I didn't realize they had curved pieces there like elbows of that size.
And they have 45s and 90s, by the way, so you don't have to go full 90. And if you in that same scene, there were some like screens, like hospital change behind kind of screens. Those were made the same way. They were made with those prefabricated 90-degree elbows for 3/4 inch PVC, and just 3/4 inch PVC. It just made a big frame. My wife took some old bed sheets and put a soda pocket on each end, and we just strung it up, and I made a 1x3 frame. We painted all the frame silver and strung the bed sheet on there. I mean, they were cheap, easy, fast. And I'd been looking for some of those screens. I'm lucky I have a friend that kind of has an in with hospital equipment, but unfortunately those screens are very hard to come by because when somebody buys one in a hospital or medical practice, they tend to last forever just because they don't get a lot of action, so to speak. So they don't come up very often.
Because they're just blocking sight, and you're not really touching them. They just get moved. There was a haunted tree out in the front that was pretty amazing. And how did you build that? Did somebody carve it out for you?
Well, I wish I could say I had anything to do with that. However, I didn't really. So my contribution to that was I had this giant piece of foam that I think had probably been on a boat dock or something. And I have a very talented friend. Her name is Shannon Thompson. She's in our local haunt group, Cow Haunts. And she also is a kind of a creative person at our haunt. Not this past year, but the previous year at the convention, Mid-Center Scream, if you've heard about that. It's a fantastic convention here in Long Beach, California. Our haunt group, Cow Haunts, had done we'd done the entry portal, kind of a facade, and then a walk-through cemetery, based on Sleepy Hollow. And I had seen this picture of a tree like this. It circulated a lot in the Halloween, groups and stuff. It was carved out of wood. It was a real tree that somebody had carved, I think probably with a chainsaw or something. And I showed it to her, and I said, I have this big piece of foam. It fits with our theme, for this thing. And she said, yes, this is great. Everybody on the team said, yeah, we need that for the display. So I provided the foam. She carved it. And I, helped a little bit with some of the hard coating and things like that. She painted it, and I got it because, it was all my product and whatever. So.
Yeah, that thing is gorgeous. She is very talented.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's carved several things for the haunt, and And also, even the facade that you saw in Chris's video, the faux clapboard painting. And if you go to the website, I mean not the website, the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel, you'll see that there's a video on how to do that clapboard painting by Shannon. And she's very talented. I'm just telling you,
I did watch that video back probably in October when I was deep into searching around YouTube trying to find cool shit to watch. That technique is quick. It's fast. Like you said before, it's quick. It's fast. It's cheap. When people say you only can get 2 out of the 3, they are wrong. They are wrong.
You just got to know the right people.
And you are proof. Send them down to your haunt. Set them straight. Get their shit in order. The grandfather clock was another thing that I really dug. Was that an original piece and you just changed out the face, or was that a complete build?
So I can't claim that either. My brother built that. It's a scratch built. It's all right, built.
Hold on. Get your brother on the phone. Why am I talking to
you? Yeah, he helped. Well, the thing is, here's the goofy thing. So he lives in Anaheim, which you may recognize that town.
Yep.
So that's about 30 miles south of LA. So we're about 100 miles apart. So he's a partner in the haunt, but because we're just far enough away that it's hard for him to get here routinely, a lot of times he'll do stuff like the video production or assemble the ghost detectors, or he built that grandfather clock, because that's stuff he can do remotely. He can do it at his house, and it's still really cool, awesome stuff that adds a lot to the haunt. So it's all scratch built. It's all built out of like 1x2s and 2x2s and Luan, and it actually has a stepper motor in place of the clock motor, and it can be triggered. It's all powered by an Arduino. So when you trigger it, it's got an ambient mode where the hands are just moving slowly in forward motion. And when you trigger it, the chimes start chiming, LED lights inside start flashing and strobing, and then the clock hands will go backwards, kind of a thing. So, yeah, it's very cool.
Wow.
We didn't use it that way this year because we've used it that way in previous haunts, and I'd like to get enough change in the show. There's that one kid that comes, do you still have the room that's this way, and then their hallway, you turn right, you go down, it's like, yeah.
Hey, kid, am I charging you money to come in?
Yeah, it's like, so we're very conscious, and we try to change, as much as we can change that makes sense to change.
Yeah.
So this year we decided not to run the clock because, we had other things. It was in that same room with the imposing actor and the.
Just turning it, not activating it, people won't really pay too much attention to it. You turn it back on next year, they'll think it's a brand new prop. They'll be like, oh my God, it's something new. I guess it's funny how I have people say, they'll come by the yard and then they go, they'll be looking, you got some new stuff here this year. And I'm like, yep. And I have all these 3 new things that I just built and put in the yard and I'm super pumped about. And they're like, is that new right there, that worm? No, I've had that there for like 5 years. The new shit is over there, and this piece over here. How dare you get the wrong thing? The brickwork in there, I know you've had this in your haunt for several years, but right before you walk into the barn, there's that kind of hallway with the brick and kind of the plaques on it and stuff. And
right. Yeah, the crypt walls.
So, the crypt walls. It looks so authentic. It looks great. In the daylight, I can imagine what it looks like at night. But in the daylight, it looks so realistic.
So, that's a technique. It's actually Kenneth Thompson from K Studios. There was a video out a few years back that he did on how to do realistic bricks. And so what it is it's actually pink. The bricks are pink foam, and it's 1/2-inch pink foam. And what you do is you cut them the size of a brick. And then you take an Olfa knife, if you know what the Olfa knife is. It's one of those snap-off blades, that you can project out real long, like maybe 5 or 6 inches long. And you literally split the brick in half. So now you have 2 1/4-inch pieces. But by using that knife, it doesn't reach all the way through the brick. And when you peel it apart, you get this kind of rough texture on it. And then you glue them down, and then we mixed, it's an acrylic mortar mix like you would use to set tile, and mix it and pipe it through a bag and fill in all the grout lines, and then paint every brick with a combination of acrylic paint and the same mortar mix. You mix the mortar mix with like half paint and half water. And paint the bricks with it to give it a hard coat. Of course, that's after you flame them with the torch. And yes, is it a long, involved process? Yes. Does it look freaking amazing? Yes. So if you've got the time, it is by far the best way to do brick I've ever seen.
I agree. I concur, my friend. Yes. Gorgeous. Let me see. Okay, so... Oh, the singing pumpkin scene out front. I've seen people do those before. Just give me... I bet I've never really looked into how they're done. How do you know... Each one of them will kind of blink and they're singing. They're all like timed up to a song, pretty much. What are you using to run that program, or how does that work?
I'll tell you how not to do it. And the way I did it is how not to do it, Chris. So,
okay.
The way it is done in our haunt is I use it's a 4-channel dimmer pack. So it's just something like a DJ might use or a small theater to dim lights. So it's DMX controlled dimmer packs, 4 channels. And then, of course, I run an NTEC, USB to DMX converter and a laptop, and then I run VSA. That's where everything is all wrong, okay? Because doing this with VSA is ridiculous. Because if you've worked with VSA, to do something, it takes, 700 commands to do, 5 seconds of something. So it's not the right way to do it. I actually had to develop a flicker, create what a candle flicker might look like, and then copy and paste it for all of the ambient and when they're not singing. And then when they're singing, then of course you have a little ramp up down that you put in for every high point in the music for each part. So there's 4 tracks of dimming. Each track runs a separate channel, and then I usually plug one large pumpkin into the channel that runs the main, and then I'll try to do 2 pumpkins on every one downstream, right? And they just use a little, they're kind of those older style foam pumpkins that have a little like a nightlight in there, 120 volt nightlight in there, and just plug it into the dimmer and run it. Now, I would say if somebody else wanted to do that, I'd use some other program to do it if that's all you want to do. The reason I used VSA is because I wanted to do servo control. I actually have an unfinished now for I think 4 years, 3-axis skull in my garage that I can't seem to get finished. That is going to get finished this year because it's written into the story now, so it's going to get finished. And then so I wanted to do servos, and really VSA is the only place that's easy to do a servo with DMX. So unless you go Lightorama. Which is, costly. So because VSA is not too costly and the rest of the hardware is not too costly, I decided to go down that road. I would not choose that unless you absolutely need to do something like Servos, because then you could use something like Vixen, which is a free software package that has utilities in it that will analyze your audio track and create a lighting track for you to modify. It's not going to be perfect, but you know what I mean? You can run it through the routine and then tweak it, as opposed to, trying to do everything from scratch.
So Vixen would be probably the thing to look into for somebody who wants to try and emulate that. Yeah, do the similar scene.
Unless you want to move up to Lightorama. So it just depends on where you want to put your money.
Do they sell packs like kits that are small that you would just be able to use for a pumpkin kind of set, or are they usually you have to buy the package, which is much larger than that?
For Lightorama?
Yeah.
I don't know. When I looked into it, it was more hundreds of dollars than I wanted to spend.
Yeah.
For a minimum thing.
For that effect, yeah.
Yeah. And now, look, if you're one of those people that wants to do Christmas in a kind of an upscale way, hey, it's the way to go. Because a lot of the Christmas goofs use it.
Kill two birds with one stone there.
Yeah. You can do it with Vixen too. There are a lot of people that use Vixen. It's just that Vixen doesn't have it doesn't deal with servos. That's really, at the end of the day, that's where you get into trouble.
So for just light, it's fine, right?
Yep. If you're just doing light, I would say do that. You don't even need to spend the money on a real NTech interface. You can probably buy one of those $15 interfaces that you can get off of eBay or whatever. That's an NTech clone. And, free Vixen, and, you can get a dimmer pack. They run anywhere around $45 to $80. And you can do it. And you need, some pumpkins. So.
Now, you mentioned earlier that you were involved with the Midsummer Scream.
Yeah, our haunt group, Cal Haunts, was approached a couple of years ago to do the sod and the entry components. And so, we did that. I helped with that the first year, kind of in a not super duper heavy, but fairly heavy role. And then this past year, we got asked to do it again. So we did it again, and we built this amazing Frankenstein set.
If you do say so yourself.
I'm going to say so myself. It was the most kick-ass thing at the show. I'm just going to say it. Our haunt group did that. I cannot claim any kind of, I was a logistics guy. I was a carpenter. I was an electrician. But there were people who literally spent weeks in a kiddie pool carving blocks of white styrofoam into stone blocks and things like that. They should get some kind of medal, because I'm telling you, they were just, there were thousands of bricks that were carved all by hand, things like that.
Well, so. I'll hook him up with the Hauntcast honorary mention medal, and also how many people were there? I'll have them made up and I'll send them out to them.
There you go. Yeah. They're my heroes. But yeah, so we got a little deeper. So the haunt group has been asked to help out with it. It's not me personally. I'm just one of those, I'm a cog in the machine kind of a thing. But without that cog, the whole machine breaks down. Nah, it'd still get done. They wouldn't have as much fun.
Dude, I'm trying to pat you on the back.
I'm getting there. I'm saying they wouldn't have as much fun because I wouldn't be there. But
exactly.
But it'd still happen.
All right. So any tips or tricks that you can leave us with? Any big ahas you've had over the last year or so? Things that you're maybe going to be putting into your 2019 show? Just any one cool thing or aha that you've come across lately?
I don't have it yet. I think, I kind of alluded to that RFID thing that's on the horizon. Mm-hmm. I'm really hoping that's going to turn out and work, and then we'll see. But I think if I got a tip for anybody is if you want to try something, do it. Don't be afraid. You know what I mean? Because I know when I was first getting into haunting, I was panicked that I was going to screw something up. And it's like, nobody knows what it's supposed to be except you. So try it anyways. And most people are doing good to get a jack-o'-lantern on the front porch and hand out some candy, right? So anything you do past that is, spectacular.
And you got to start out somewhere. So if I think I remember Laurie Beast saying this. Remember Laurie Franklin? The sculptress of scares. She said, if you're afraid of sculpting, don't. Just dive in and do it. You're afraid of paint. Paint's forgiving. Just do it. Just paint it.
Yeah.
You can always paint it again. You can always shave a little off.
Yeah.
You can always add a little more. You can always do. Shit. There are things that I have in my yard that I've rebuilt numerous times. Or I started the project. I got a quarter of the way in or halfway in and go, I just don't like the way this thing is coming out, and just scrap it and start over. You can always do that. There's nothing wrong with that. You learn a lot. That process is how you learn. So if people want to find you, best place to hit you up or find you is where?
The best thing to do is look for Restless Souls Manor on Facebook. We also have restlesssoulsmanor.com. I will tell you the website needs a serious tune-up. Don't be shocked if you go there and you go, what? But
it has a picture and it tells you the hours that you're going to be open.
But at any rate, the website's bad. But look for Restless Souls Manor on Facebook is the best way. You can always message us through there. We listen. We do reply, as you know. So that's probably the best place to find us.
And YouTube channel, like you said, right?
I have a YouTube channel for Restless Souls Manor, and I have a personal one for Greg Packard. If you look for either of those, you should find them. My channel has a few weird old kind of techie things I did a number of years back. But they're still valid.
I know how much you want to hang and talk with me for like another 2 hours, but I'm going to let you go. Hey,
no problem.
As I always say, it's always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And really, thanks for spending some time. You were a wealth of knowledge, my friend.
I wish. But hey, it's been my pleasure, absolutely. And I feel very humbled to be on the show. So
awesome, Greg. We'll catch you around the net.
Are you satisfied now, you fools?
Let's give up the scream outs to our Patreon supporters. We have Wes Campbell, Steve Dolshall, Don Dolshall, Brent Wilson, Ron Knobloch, Roy John Holland, Rob James, Stephen Garrett, Donald Keith, Mark Muncy, Evil Deb, Sudsy, Greg Wallace, Tim Fowler, Craig Maines, Doug Kabarak, David Calkins, Joe Hodges, Russell Lee, Daniel Hoffman, Rich Barron, Robert Sosak, Nelson Barros, Francis Alsaus, Jim Slanker, Devlin Hyde, Rudy Inamoto, Donald Powers, Justin Krasnodemensky, Kristen Ardent, Michael Head, Lisa Holman, Jean-Francois Pomeroy, Cindy Noyes, Christopher Reeves, James Shearer, James McLarty, Warren Maxwell, Daniel Wendorf, Scott Santana, Linda Marshall, Mark Constable, Nick Shepard, Chris Caines, Jim Transu, Mike Blumuff, Randy Eveland, Teresa Meredith, Scott Messinger, Oliver White, Bob Valancourt, Mariah Bowers, Robert Cole, Steve Davis, Mason Johnson, Crawford Hampson, Jacob Bauer, Cthulhu's Dream, Casket Repair, Steve Uhas, Jen Daigle, David A. Freeman, Garrett Wiseman, Goth Kitty Lady, Matt Murfeld, David Marlowe, DG Gothic, Barbara Richards, Eric Curtis, and David O'Neill. As I mentioned in the beginning of the show, we're trying to wean ourselves off of Patreon and get everybody over onto Subscribestar. So by the end of February, if everyone could please just sign up over at Subscribestar, pick up exactly at the same level that you're at, hopefully. Or you could go to a higher level if you'd like, but please do not downsize your contribution at this point because we don't want to end up going below the $830 a month, and that would put us into a situation where we might have to cut it down to 5 shows a year, and we don't want to do that. So if you haven't supported us, jump in at least at a couple of dollars in the tip jar, or choose one of the other options. If you choose at least $10 a month, then you get thrown into the prize giveaways, as we will be giving away prizes every month. This month I've got a selection of DVDs and a book to give out, so let's get to it. Scully, dig your claw into the bowl and pull out a winner. Rob James. Rob, you win the Ultimate Haunted House DVD. Make sure you email me at baker@hauntcast.net with your address. Mike Sedera, a.k.a. Sudsy. Mike, you win the Horrific Haunted House Tips DVD. Doug Kabarak. Doug, you win the Dynamic Haunted Attraction Design DVD. Francis Allshouse. And Francis, you win the book Drawn to the Dark from Chris Kallstrom. I sincerely appreciate that you guys have stepped up to help support the show. To everyone, once again, if you can move over to subscribestar.com/Hauntcast, we will not be canceling Patreon, so if you don't get this or you decide that you don't want to be bothered with moving over to Subscribestar, okay, I get it. I'd rather keep your support than lose it. For anybody else, if it's not too much of an inconvenience, please move over to Subscribestar. That would be greatly appreciated. For all of you going to Transworld, unfortunately, I will not see you this year. Family trip got in the way, scheduling and all of that. This is the only time of year I could go away, and I can't swing 2 trips in 1 month. So the bathroom urinals are safe in St. Louis until 2020. The Haunt and Halloween Dream Team, known as the Scream Team, will reconvene on April 5th with all the knuckle-dragging buffoonery that you've been accustomed to. In the meantime, head over to hauntcast.net. All of the shows are available on the website, as well as Podbean, Stitcher, Google Play, and iTunes. As for now, the dungeon is closed.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast.
But I can't leave them, I can't! Yes, go! You live!
I'm going now. Heaven help you.